How do you know it's not spare ribs?
Because it's chicken.
It's the law of identity. Spare ribs are not chicken.
Jeremy's like, fuck, I don't have anything else.
I almost had him on that. I know.
How do you
I'm
know you're
just
not
saying,
gay,
bro,
Jeremy?
knowing, because I'm not attracted to dudes.
What
That
the
was
hell
so
are you guys
funny,
talking
Jer.
about here? What are you guys talking about?
Oh, Oscar, in your worldview, is it possible that the moon could be made of spare ribs?
Yeah, why not? Usually when people say something possible, they mean is it logically possible? And I guess it's logically possible.
How is it logically possible?
How is it not logically possible? Like, someone could have made the moon 10,000 years ago and made it out of spare ribs.
That's ridiculous. That's absurd.
Yeah. It is completely absurd, but it's logically possible, isn't it? Are you guys saying it's not?
I agree with Galatrax. In my worldview, it is absurd. It's a point of absurdity to argue that the moon is made of spare ribs. That the moon could be made of spare ribs.
Yeah, it's definitely absurd, but like if someone says is something possible, they usually mean is it logically possible? And I see no reason to think that it's logically impossible for the moon to be made of ribs.
Yikes.
Yikes isn't a response. Like, why is it logically impossible?
In the pragmatic sense, no, it's not. Right? But if you want to like jerk yourself off with like philosophical bullshit, that's different.
Yeah, pragmatically, it's not possible, and it would be extremely absurd if it was the case. But logically, it's not impossible as far as I can tell.
You guys are getting killed on this spare rib thing right here.
Dude,
No, for
you
real
didn't
though.
even answer my question.
Why is it
I
impossible?
cooked you on the
logically?
spare ribs. I said, do you like sucking dick? And you never answered. It's that simple.
Me or who? Someone else?
No, I'm saying Jeremy. Jeremy said we're getting cooked on the spare ribs. I'm trying to push his logic, but he doesn't want to answer because he knows what he has to say.
Basically, Jeremy's logic is if you don't know for a fact what the moon is or what it's made of, or if it's even a physical thing, then it is still possible that the moon is made of spare ribs. Pure challenged his logic by saying, Jeremy, how do you know you're not gay? If you've never sucked dick, how do you know? Then Jeremy would subsequently have to say, well, I guess I'd have to suck dick to know, wouldn't I?
I don't think you have to test. I don't think you have to do that to test if you're gay, bro.
So you would agree that there's steps before the logical conclusion of the moon is made of spare ribs, right? There'd be certain impossible steps before that would make it absurd to say that it's possible.
Sure, you have to isolate the variable to tell if you're gay or not. Unless you at least try it once, you're never gonna know for sure.
All right, I'll tell you guys what the actual test is. We all put on tidy whities, turn on our cameras, and we all watch gay porn together for 10 minutes, and whoever gets a boner is gay.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Science.
What the fuck?
You want to watch gay porn with other guys? Gay.
For science.
Yeah, you're gay for science.
Well, we never said that we would like it. We just want to see it if we would like it
But
first.
if you're even open to it. you're a
I'm
little
open
gay.
to it because I'm not worried. Maybe you're worried about that you're gonna lose.
Hey, don't project onto me, man. I'm not worried at all. I just don't want to do it
Oh, why don't you want to do it?
because I don't think science is that important.
Oh, okay.
All right, where do we go from here, guys? Gonna go into logical absurdity or what?
Yo, I got is Tora or Lion yet? Damn it, they're gone. All right, I'll wait. I got a nice I got something for the Christians. They're kind of fucked. I recently figured out why the secret Gospel of Mark was not in the canon. It's very much like the Mark's account in the Bible, which I don't know why they left that one even
My
as it is.
favorite canon. My favorite canon is the remix with Lil Wayne. Shit was fire. You heard that one?
You're trying to divert from a Bible debate.
I mean, we did the Bible like 3 or 4 times already today. I don't know. Do you want to? We're doing it
No,
again.
I'm just saying I got something cooking.
Is it spare ribs?
It's Christians on a grill. I hope I'm responsible for some people going to Islam in this community. They're like running from Christianity
Why are you so anti-Christian?
because they're definitely. Let me think about it. Yeah, they're the gayest religion, bro. Or maybe no. I
Yeah, it's
mean,
not a good answer.
full like the full Jewish like religion. Like so, Christianity is like half Jewish. The full like Jewish religion where they like, which is the fucking weird, like that crazy Jewish book. Probably the worst one.
The Torah?
No, that's in the Bible. The one that they
The
talk
Talmud?
about. Yeah, I think the Talmud. Yeah.
The Talmud, the Mishnah. We're thinking of the Mishnah. The Talmud is the rabbinical commentary on the Mishnah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's not actual scripture. The Talmud's not scripture. It's just a bunch of rabbis got together and argued about how you are supposed to interpret the 5 books of Moses. Right? They say this is the verbal instruction that was given to interpret the 5 books of Moses, but there's no record of any of that being true. So a bunch of rabbis got together and they just argued about how to make this work for them.
Yeah,
Bro, why
basically,
can't?
isn't that just like the loophole? Like it's just a bunch of Jews gathering around trying to loophole God.
Bro, they got the craziest loophole out of all the religions. The Muslims have a really crazy one too, but the Jew one's really bad, bro. You're not supposed to work on a certain day of the week. And what they do is this is the loophole. They put a wire. This is the longest wire in the world. It goes all the way around like Manhattan or some shit. And they say, okay, inside this wire is our home, so we're allowed to work because you're allowed to do stuff in your home. So they just say inside the wire is our home, and we're just doing stuff inside our home, even though they're just work. They're really just working. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
That's the
Imagine
biggest dude.
trying
There's
to
one guy's
trying
job.
to
One
dupe
guy.
dupe God and thinking like, yeah, that's okay. That's how we can loophole.
I know. You really think you're
God.
gonna get a loophole on God, bro? This isn't the American justice system, bro.
That's
There's one
crazy.
They
guy.
do it with
There's one
everything, though.
guy whose job. There's one guy whose job. His whole job is to check this wire, bro. That's all he does. One guy just checks the wire. Because if it's
That's-
broke, it's you're not inside the house, and it's very important that wire is intact.
Yo, if that one guy messes up his job, everyone in NYC has to go to hell.
Something.
Did you realize that? If that one guy messes up, basically every Jew goes to hell.
Dude, they're already fucked. This
Oh, they
doesn't
would just
work.
come up.
You're not finding a
oh,
loophole to beat God, bro. Like, there's no
it's
loopholes.
called an Erev. Yeah, I just looked it up, Galatrax. An Erev. It's an actual thing.
Yeah,
Look
An
up
he
the
just
Erev.
one
made that
where
shit
they
up.
I'm gonna
one
read
where they
it.
transfer their sins to a chicken and then kill the chicken.
Yeah, the sin chicken.
Like they think they're outwitting God.
So listen to this: an Erev, right? An Erev is a boundary often made of string or wire stretched on top of utility poles that symbolically encloses a neighborhood or city. Its purpose is to create a quote-unquote private domain within which observant Jews can carry items, push strollers, and use canes or walkers on Shabbat.
They're doing more than that, bro.
Without an Erev, these activities would be forbidden as they are considered work in public domains. That's crazy.
Yeah, the biggest
Dude,
one goes all the way around Manhattan. Muslims are doing God dirty too, bro. The Muslims, they,
Dude, look at this.
what is it?
That's an Erev.
Yeah, but I just joined, but yeah, in the views of the Muslim, they're not doing God dirty. They probably say the same about you.
No, I know. I talk to Muslims and they don't think they're cheating God either, but they do this thing where they're supposed to be fasting. I forget it's called
Ramadan.
Ramadan, right? You're supposed to be like fasting.
Oh, yeah.
But they end up eating more. They actually end up eating more during Ramadan than they do the whole rest of the year because they're wilding at night. They just sleep all day and like party all night and eat crazy more
Yeah.
than they usually would.
Yeah, I agree. Like they still drink Pepsi and all that bullshit. Yeah, they ain't real ones.
Is it not that they're just fasting during daytime? Isn't it the whole idea?
Sun up
Fasting
to
during daytime
sundown.
so that they can
Yeah.
feed the moon or what? They can feed the darkness.
I don't know, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as the Jew wire. Because you can make a case that they're technically not really doing anything wrong, even though it's still like kind of, it still feels like a loophole what they're doing. But the Jewish one's crazy. That's definitely a crazy loophole.
Yeah. Like personally, I come back from America and I gained 10 pounds, and I fasted for 2 days and I lost 7 pounds already. And you just fast when you want to. Like, do you guys know what the implementations are for that fasting? They do it for the moon, or what do they do it for?
I don't know. I'm just saying you're supposed to be fasting during Ramadan, and they end up eating more than they do the whole rest of the year because they're partying all night and eat and just feasting. So
Yeah, it just says sun up
Yeah.
to sundown.
So it's kind of like Christians, right? Who continue to sin and think they're going to be forgiven, right? Kind of like that.
Ooh.
They go to church and pray to be forgiven, and then they go back to sinning. You know?
He got you there.
it's supposed to be a month of fasting, right?
No, they're just supposed to fast while the sun is up.
That's it. That's what it says in their Quran or whatever. Don't eat while the
As
sun's
far
up.
as far as I know.
Well, that would become intermittent fasting then, wouldn't it? And quite a good one. That'd be quite a short eating window if you're sleeping in a lot of that dark as well. So
Not
yeah.
true.
No, they stay up all night and just fucking
Oh,
party.
oh, they
They
must
just
sleep at
sleep. They
some
switch
point.
to sleeping all day. They
Oh,
start
okay.
sleeping all day.
Oh,
Right? Is that what they do, or I don't know?
I
That's
don't
what I've
know.
heard they do.
They do this. Is that what they do? I don't know.
Well, I have two of them
I've been
where
told
I
that
work.
that's what they do. Yeah.
Hey, I have 2 employees, 2 Muslim employees. And I could probably go ask them if you guys really want. I'm serious about
Are
that.
they there? Are they working during the day? I work with a Muslim guy, but we work second shift, so I don't know.
Oh yeah,
So I got a
yeah.
question. Does
He's
anyone
the
here?
one that told me they stay up all night and sleep all day, and they just eat all night. So
Yeah. Who knows, right? Fuck, man.
All
All
right,
I
religions
mean,
are
I got a
wrong.
question, if I can ask it. Does anyone in here assert that the belief in the globe is a religious belief?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it
uh,
became accepted by the church in
Ba-
like the
based-
19th
I
century, which is like
Globe
400
is
years.
100% religion.
I think it is if it's unfalsifiable with certain claims and entailments that the globe have.
Yeah,
Like,
we already went through that though. We showed how it is
Yeah.
falsifiable. So
Yeah.
other than so it's falsifiable, what else would make it religious?
Go in your bathroom, you know what I mean?
what do you mean you made it
Like false.
unfalsifiable? You claim
No,
that if we can see 20,000 kilometers away and view something, then that would prove that the globe is falsified.
that would falsify the globe. Yep.
20,000 kilometers away.
Yep. Yep.
well,
I mean,
ask him.
dude,
How do you
that's the
establish
whole
knowledge, Rich?
circumference. Hold on. You could probably actually do that. You could have it still be a globe. We can make the refraction necessary because we know what kind of refraction is needed for that. We can artificially make that happen. See 20,000 kilometers, and you're saying it's not a globe.
How much refraction would be necessary? What would be the refraction coefficient to see 20,000 kilometers
I
on a
don't know. We
globe?
can make heat,
I thought
cold,
you said you did
humidity.
know.
I said we know we know what it would be necessary for that,
Yeah. So
right?
how much refraction would be necessary in order for that to happen? What would the refraction coefficient be?
I don't know. It'd probably have to be very high, but I'd have to guess that we could actually make hot and cold and humidity wherever we wanted to. So whatever the number is, we could just make an optical corridor of that temperature, pressure, and humidity, and boom, you'd be able to see 20,000 kilometers, and you could still be on a globe. See,
I
that's
don't
what I'm
think that's
saying.
possible. I don't
That's
think
what
that's
happened.
possible.
It's called line of sight geometry. It's like, how does line of sight dictate that the ground curves?
You don't think that we could make? You don't think that we could artificially make it so that you could see farther, like make the horizon be farther away?
That's not what I said. I said you'd have to see 20,000 kilometers, and the
Yeah, but
amount of
why not?
refraction that would be required would not be possible for us to see in
Okay,
air.
okay, but you do think we could see? We could artificially change the temperature, pressure, and humidity so that we could see
No,
farther away? You don't think we could do that at all?
That's not the point. It's falsifiable because if we saw that distance, it couldn't be a globe,
I don't think
I
right?
know,
nature
but
It has
but that's
specifies
what
nothing
I'm
to
telling
why.
you.
I don't
But that's
understand
what
why
I'm
you.
telling you.
Obviously, I assert that refraction occurs and can cause us to see a little bit further.
I know, but I'm telling you, we could artificially make it so that we could see the horizon. We could see farther away than what you normally should be. You don't think we could
In
artificially do
air?
that? Yes, in air. Yes.
Okay, well, I would like you to demonstrate that's possible.
Well, what would you have to do? Change the temperature, pressure, and humidity, right? You don't think we're capable of that?
I don't think that you would be able to get the temperature,
Well,
humidity, or
this is
pressure
besides the
to a
point, though.
specific point that it would be able to curve that far.
This is besides the point, though, Jeremy, because the
No,
original
it's not.
question was how could we falsify the globe radius, right?
Mhm.
So the curve, right, the curvature is what's obstructing our view of things in the distance, correct? You would stay by that statement?
Mhm.
Okay.
Depends on how far we're talking, of
So,
course, but yeah.
okay, so if I see things that are farther than what the geometric curve would dictate me being allowed, like I'm allowed to see. I can't see further than a certain point because they would be obstructed by Earth curvature. Would you then claim that those long distance observations are because of refraction?
Potentially.
That's unfalsifiable because that means you can ad hoc refraction to any
Nope.
observation or video or test and be like, okay, well, he was able to see this far. I just need this much refraction in order to make it a globe again. That's
No,
unfalsifiable.
I said in particular situations. If it's the case that we're seeing something 20,000 kilometers away, then it can't be refraction, right?
Like, can I just ask a question? Like, how does
It's
line of
crazy.
sight geometry dictate that the ground curves? It's like because you can see like much further doesn't mean that the ground's curving at any point in time. Like, how do you make that cognitive leap? I'm just wondering.
So if the Earth has a specific geometry to it, right? Physical entailments, right? Like a radius value of 3959, right? Geometrically speaking, if I'm staring off into the distance, right, there would be a drop over distance at a certain point to where I wouldn't be able to see certain things past that distance
Yeah,
because of the sagitta.
your line of sight is dropping, but that does not mean that the ground is curving.
All right, sorry. I just have to go back to what we were originally talking about, right? So I was asking if it's a religious claim. You said
It
it
is.
was because it's unfalsifiable. We've
Yeah,
shown
you're
that it
asking
is
for the impossible.
falsifiable. Well, no, I've shown you that it is falsifiable. In what other sense would you say that it's religious?
No, you're asking for an impossibility. That's why it's unfalsifiable.
It's the only reason that it would be impossible is if it is a globe. If it is a globe, then we cannot see 20,000 kilometers away. That doesn't make it unfalsifiable. The fact is, if we were able to see that far, it would falsify the globe. The fact that we're on a globe means that it's impossible to see that far.
This is crazy, dude. So if I can see 100 miles away, let's say I'm at sea level, and I can see the shores of a distant island 100 miles away, and there's supposed to be a certain amount of curvature between me and what I'm looking at, right? There should be a physical hump in the way. If I'm able to see that, right? And we're talking about 100 miles, not 20,000. 100 miles away.
I don't know why you aren't addressing
You would say
like, what I'm talking about. You're just
you would
asking
say
a different question.
you would say that would be possible due to refraction. Would you say that?
I'd have to look into it. I'm not making any claim on that until I do some research and calculations.
He's saying you can't say all swans are white, and then we give you a black swan, and you say no, that's not actually a black swan. It's a
I
white
didn't
swan.
say all swans are white.
Well, yeah, that's what you're saying.
No,
that's what you're saying with your radius claim over distance, drop over distance. That's exactly what you're saying when you invoke.
You're obviously
refraction.
not tracking what the conversation is. So I'll ask the question again. What would make the claim that the Earth is a globe a religious claim?
When you state a certain way to falsify the globe is actually unreasonable.
What's unreasonable about the falsification method that I've provided?
Okay. 20,000 kilometers away? It's like a crazy standard. It's an unreasonable standard, making it unfalsifiable.
No, it's completely reasonable because it's half the circumference of the Earth. It would be on the opposite side of the Earth, so the light would have to bend all the way around, which, as far as I know, isn't possible with the amount of mass that the Earth has. So I'm giving you a criteria that would falsify the 3959 globe, right? And your response to that is just crazy. I mean, it's if your only criteria for it to be a religious claim is that it's unfalsifiable. If the only reason that you would say something is a religious claim is because it's unfalsifiable, I have obviously demonstrated that the globe does not qualify as a religious claim because it is falsified.
You sound like a religious zealot right now. Actually, you're making an unfalsifiable,
whatever you think,
reasonable
man.
claim. You're making a claim. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, I just want to know what his standard of evidence is, right? And how he establishes knowledge. Because that's what it's all going to come down to, because he'll just keep kicking the can or moving the goalpost, right? And be like, no, this standard fits my belief, right? So establish that and then move forward and see if you can hold to your own standard and claim it's not religious. But I doubt you'd be able to hold to your own standard. So how do you establish knowledge? Yeah, it's a religion. I know, you know, we know.
I don't know why the conversation always has to go back to epistemics. It doesn't really make a difference on how someone gets to knowledge in terms of whether or not a thing is falsifiable or not.
It makes all the difference, but we're not going to go there.
No,
Rich,
we're not going to go there. Okay, even though it makes a lot of difference. Interesting.
Is there any other way to falsify the globe in your mind?
I already
Other
gave
than
one.
Is
I
Rich
said,
a
is
glurp
there
guy?
any other way? Are you listening? Any other way?
What? You just want me to come up with another one? Okay.
It's your standard.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Shoot.
Seeing the entirety of all continents from a singular point.
Wow. Another
You have to
unreasonable
be
claim to
kidding.
do. Yeah.
See, you're just arbitrarily calling it unreasonable.
Dude,
If I could
dude,
see
dude,
the
we don't see
extent of the
forever.
entire
We don't
Earth
see forever.
without it being on another, if it's a globe, there would have to be a portion of the Earth on the other side of it.
We
So it's
don't see
obviously
forever.
that's
There is like
irrelevant.
air. You breathe air, right? Their air has some humidity, like air has some density. We don't see forever. That's retarded, man.
Density goes down as you go higher, correct?
It's still totally
So with
retarded,
height, you
man.
would be able to see the entire thing, right?
No, you wouldn't.
So
Have you
density
ever heard of
doesn't go down as you get higher?
Have you ever
What
heard
do you
of
disagree
light
with?
attenuation? Do you know what a light attenuation is? Do you
I've
think
heard
that's an
Force try
actual
to
effect?
explain it before, yeah.
You know that's an
1/8
actual effect, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's an actual effect. So like if I shine a flashlight in the distance, okay, and I'm a certain mileage away and it's foggy, all right? Is it because I can't see the if I can't see the light, is that because of Earth curve or is it because of the turbidity in the air?
Yeah, it's being obstructed as it goes through the air. That's perfectly
Okay,
fine.
so we
But
don't
with
see
enough
forever.
height, you would get to a negligible amount of atmosphere, which would cause a negligible amount of obstruction, and you would be able to see it all.
No, that's what you think in your mind that we would
Well,
be
tell
able
me
to
how that's
see it
wrong.
all. That's not what any flat earther
I just
says.
accounted
No
for
one
the amount of atmosphere between you and the object that you're saying would stop you from seeing it. So
no one
what
thinks you
else?
can
What's your
see
other
forever, dude.
explanation other than attenuation?
No one thinks you can see forever. Do you have any other
Jeez.
way to
I
falsify the
mean,
globe?
with
Because
two
so far it's
already
two.
unanswered falsification methods, you'd think you would just try to deal with one that I've already said. But you want me to come up with a third now? Is that really where we're at?
What would we be looking at? Like, okay, so 12,427 miles. What are we looking at?
He's just showing you. He's just displayed how he has no standard, right?
Yeah.
None
No,
whatsoever.
I mean, what?
He's
No,
just going to make claims, right? He's going to make endless claims that he has no standard to support those claims, right? Because he could just be like, well, I'll pivot to this now. But you haven't even built a standard of knowledge and what's real, what's not.
You can't possibly tell me
we just
I'm
do
pivoting when I've provided two falsification methods that are
They're
reasonable.
not reasonable. They're not reasonable at all.
Exactly.
That's just an
Reasonable
arbitrary label you're putting on it because
paradigm.
you don't like them for some reason.
No, you're claiming you can see forever, guy. Like, what are you on about? How do you substantiate that? All right, well, why do you need a telescope to see into the, why do you need all these telescopes if you can see forever? Why can't you just look into this? Why can't you fucking zoom into the stars? Why can't you see past the stars? Why can you not look into the...
You can't see past the star because it's a solid object.
Why can you not
need to zoom in order to see stars at a higher resolution. I'm sorry, you asked so many questions. I wondered when you want me to get started answering them.
I'm almost done.
But I forgot that you aren't actually interested in a conversation or receiving an answer.
Right? Yeah. No more density, right? Okay, so you go into space, it's a vacuum. How come you can't see the end of the universe with your logic?
Resolvability? Resolvability?
It's ridiculous. In his worldview, he's not making reasonable falsification methods at all.
You haven't elucidated at all what makes them unreasonable. It's just an arbitrary distinction.
How about the fact that we don't see forever?
There's a limit.
How about that?
What is the limit to how far we can see?
There's a limit to the visible universe.
What is that limit?
Who defined that?
Let's see.
Whose law is that?
Rayleigh's
criteria. Yeah.
Inverse square law.
Yes, inverse 1 over r squared.
It's the Big Bang that says that.
Okay, these are formulas. These are not distances. So try again, guys.
The Big Bang says that there's a visible universe. So
Thank you for
formula.
that pointless
there's a limit
point.
to it.
You can
Hold
go
on,
ahead
hold
with
on,
the
Rich.
But I
distance
just want to
that the
know
maximum
who's the
distance we
globe
can see
partner?
whenever you're ready.
Hold on. There are distances in the formula. All right, it is a distance-based formula. So what are you talking about?
Okay, so what
The
is the
Rayleigh's
maximum
criterion?
distance that we are able to see?
1.22. Hold on.
I used to know. I forgot it.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. Let me look it
Yeah.
up.
It's that it's that thing that they do with the slits and the light.
The
And there's like
double slit experiment?
no.
No.
This has to do with when the two
When two dots
converge.
here, yeah,
Yeah, the
that's
dots
zero.
converge.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
someone ping me when you guys figure it out.
that's
There's a
Rayleigh
ratio.
that's Rayleigh criterion, and it's
Yeah.
0.02. I think arc minutes is
Dang.
the terms. I think so.
Okay.
Arc seconds.
There
Arc
you go.
seconds.
1.22 times the wavelength of light over the diameter of the aperture.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that.
So the bigger
You,
the aperture,
you haven't said what the unit you're talking about in terms of a distance.
It's a ratio.
Yeah, I mean 1 to 2 can still be a ratio, but if
It's
you're
going to
not
be
saying 1 to 2,
relationship.
1 mile to 2 kilometers doesn't make any sense if you're
There's
talking about a
another
distance.
relationship of size
Yeah, I was
and
actually thinking the size. I was
light
talking
strength. That's the
about
one
the
over r
size of the
squared.
object. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the light strength attenuation of the.
We are talking about like how we perceive the world, and it's like you cannot like separate one thing. It's basically what the globe does. Globe is saying that how we perceive the sky and how we like our perspective work, how our eyes work. They are claiming no, that doesn't happen. They are using special pleading, and they're saying that doesn't happen on the sky. We see things every time exactly where they are, and they're like hiding it behind the that we are standing on the globe. That's exactly what they are doing. They are saying like there's only one possibility, and that's like because we are standing on the globe, and they are
And my
like
question still
excluding
has not
the
been answered.
perspective.
My question still has not been answered. I'm looking for the maximum distance that we would be able to see an object.
Let's go look it
Depends
up
on the
somewhere.
size of the
it
object. It
depends, dude.
depends
It
on the
depends on what
like
you're using.
Your eyes.
Hey man, we can play the same thing. What like is the height where it's like your gravity is making the barrier for the vacuum and the atmosphere that we are like breathing. It's the same thing. Like, and you will say it's atmosphere, it's gradient, and you will say oh it's like gradient, and it's like up to the point that there's like no like pressure, and it's same thing. Like
You
man.
gotta stop, man. You're not making a whole lot of sense. So if we don't see forever, then there is a maximum distance that we are able to see. What is that maximum distance to see something with your eyes?
It's a malformed question, dude. Several factors. Rayleigh criterion is one of those factors. Under perfect conditions, they can give you some math. Depends on the atmospheric conditions of the day.
Let's say in a vacuum, how far can we see?
Don't know. Do we have the ability to do that test?
I mean, I don't know why you're asking me if you have the ability to do something to verify one of your claims.
No, you're asking a
Look, from
malformed
what
question.
I've heard from people is you can only, they've only done a test of like, I think it's 200, what is it, 200 meters? And it's been like in a setting where it's been, verified and all that stuff. So after that is more, it's quantified to the situation at hand.
The problem is even in a flat Earth conceptual model, okay, there's atmos between you and whatever object you're looking at. So the idea that you can see forever and I should be able to see Mount Everest from Las Vegas is ridiculous, dude. There's so much shit.
I know you like to arbitrarily
much
call
shit.
things ridiculous and silly. I get that. But I was trying to get to the bottom of your claim that there is a maximum amount of distance that you would be able to see an object. If we then have to qualify certain criteria, then we can do so. Instead of saying it's a malformed
Okay.
question, you can simply say there is more information required in order to give an answer to that question. But you can give me a range of distances.
Okay, dude.
I just
Well,
need to
let
be
me.
able to say this is the maximum amount of distance that light can travel.
You guys are
Now, hold
getting
on.
old.
Let's ask you a question and see if you can get
Why?
me
You
to
guys are
answer your
getting
own.
old.
You might answer your own first question. So I'm going to ask you a question. What
Oh,
is the cause of the horizon?
The
fishing
curvature
question.
of the Earth.
See, this is where you have a problem. Because if you're going to claim that the horizon is the curvature of the Earth, then that needs to be something you can prove, right? You need a geometric horizon for that.
So I didn't answer
Oh,
my first question with the answer to that question. So let's go back to my first question, right? How
Well, you
far
clearly
can
don't
we
understand what the
see?
horizon is. The horizon is
Do
not
I
the
need to
curvature of
know
the
what
Earth.
the horizon is in order to know how far
Yeah,
one can
because it's not
see?
the curvature of the Earth. That's not the definition of the horizon.
You can red herring all you'd like, sir, but I'm not
No,
going. You're not going to bait me
would you
into
like to
changing
check the
the topic
definition?
of the conversation. You guys can
Would you
let me
like to check the
know
definition of the
once you've been
horizon?
able to decipher
Because it's
or
not the
figure
curvature of the
out
Earth.
the maximum distance that light can be seen, and then we'll go from there once you guys have an answer. Okay?
Depends on
Okay,
how
so
bright the light is.
the horizon is where the sky meets the ground. It's not the curvature of
Dude,
the
there's a
Earth.
lot of factors. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Great. You guys better account for those factors when you give me my answer.
The
Well,
burden's not on us. The
I can
burden's
give
on
you
the
some.
globe.
The burden is
I can give
entirely on
you
you for
some
making the
factors. Now,
claim that
hold
we
on.
can't see
It's not.
I
forever.
will
It's
done.
not because
It's
it's not.
entailed by saying that we can't see forever, that there's a maximum
Yeah.
distance that we can see. I
The
am now
positive
asking
sign.
you how you or what is the distance upon which further than which we cannot see.
No,
It's
sir.
a
It was.
natural
Hang on, hang on.
entailment.
It was your claim that if you could go up and see all the continents, that would falsify the globe, which stop interrupting, which implies that we can see forever. So why would we need to substantiate or negate that we can't see forever? It's your claim that would falsify the globe if you went up high enough and saw the continents. So why would we need to negate that your claim that we can see forever? You need to substantiate that we can see forever because that's your claim.
Bingo.
Incorrect. The size of the Earth,
I mean,
as it is not
it's like if you
infinite.
turn
So I wouldn't
Google
need to
Earth and it's
claim that we see
triangle, then you
forever
can
in
go
order
here
to see the
and
entirety of
there.
the Earth.
Do you have Jeremy muted, Rich? Because you just talked all over him.
Yeah, but
Jeremy,
he's
you're
robot. He's
roboting.
roboting. Yeah, he sounds like shit. Jeremy, wait till you get a better signal, dude.
Now you said incorrect, Rich. Why?
Because the Earth is not infinite in size, so we do not need to be able to see forever in order to see all of it.
But you do believe that we can
Okay,
see
I should
forever.
be
You
good now,
claimed
right?
that.
So
I not once claimed that.
You said either we can see forever or there's a limit to our vision.
That's not a claim that we can see forever.
So you believe there's a limit to our vision?
Absolutely.
Okay, what's that
Hey, we're
limit?
in the same boat.
Why are we? No, we're not in the same boat because it's for different reasons. The
Is
only
it
reason
that
that we're able to see an object is because light emanating from that object has had enough time to travel the distance towards us.
So what's the limit that we can
that's not
see
true
in
though,
your
because you
worldview?
can't see Canada.
Come
12,497
Come on, I know
miles?
I'm better now. I'm on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you sound better now, Jeremy.
I know. Can I just slip in here real quick? There's a
93
lot of
billion
factors
light
that depends
years.
on how, on if you.
Hang on, Rich.
Come on, man.
We
Can you
could
get
see
Jeremy in there
93.
just for a sec?
Sure. Jeremy, if you want to hop in, go for it.
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm on vacation. I'm good.
Oh, come
All
on.
right, so that's fine then. If his claim is that we could see 93 billion light years, to substantiate his previous claim that we can falsify the Earth if we went up and saw it in its entirety, we can falsify the globe, and then we say no because you don't see forever, and he's like, yeah, I don't think you see forever. I think you could see up to 93 billion light years. Like, do you guys see how retarded this is? And this is why we accuse you of being a religious zealot, because that's what a religious person says.
Now we have to
Calling
be
it
able to
retarded
falsify.
and just
Now we have
hand
to be
waving
able to
it is
falsify
not a
that
response to
that
the
there's
I
question.
didn't call it
something
retarded,
93
hand
billion
wave it. I made
miles.
an entire argument, and then I said, "Do you see how retarded this is? And do you see how much of a religious zealot you are?" I didn't
No.
just do that. I made a point and then did that, and you hand waved my point and started going, "Oh, you're using fallacies."
Yeah, well, when what exactly you said was, if I would have responded to you and said, "We don't see forever, we see 93 billion light years," then
Wow.
that's not you making an argument. That's just stating my position and then
You
saying,
still haven't
"Come on,
refuted what I
guys,
just said.
that's really ridiculous, huh?"
You haven't refuted what I just said.
Well,
I
it's a
made an
You haven't
claim.
made
argument
an argument.
against
You have
your
not made an
argument.
argument. You have not made an argument, sir.
Has anybody
Yeah,
made
so
any
you,
arguments right now?
Galley did
No, Rich
not.
is making claims.
yeah,
I'm
so
I'm
Rich,
gonna try
you
to falsify
claimed
93 billion. I'm going for it.
Right?
Watch me. Watch me.
Billion, by the
Oh,
way.
here I go. Here I go.
Billion.
Whew.
No.
Rich, you claimed that if you could go up high enough and see the Earth in its entirety, that would
Mm-hmm.
falsify. Okay, you don't need to chime in with little mm-hms and yes when someone's
All right,
talking.
I'll
If
be.
someone's... Alright, I'll just mute you when I
Oh
speak.
my
It's
god,
fine.
no.
It's fine. I'll
All right.
just mute you when I speak. You
Let's just go
claimed...
one at a time, guys. Come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know why he needs to do that. So you claim that if you go up high enough and see the Earth in its entirety, that would falsify the curvature of the Earth. That would imply that you can see, either you see forever or you don't see forever, right? So you said, okay, so how far can we see? So why would we have to substantiate that? Because this is substantiating your claim that if we went up high enough, we could falsify the globe. Why would we have to substantiate your claim? So then you claim, oh, well, you could see up to 93 billion light years away. So how do you substantiate that? So your unfalsifiable claim is backed by an unfalsifiable claim. That's why you're religious. That's what makes you religious.
Just go back 93 billion years. Dang it,
Incorrect. Incorrect again. So when we say that I can go high enough in order to see the entirety of the Earth, right? We're talking about not being able to. If the Earth is a globe, one side would not be able to be visible at any given point, right? We have the close side and the far side, let's call them. Now, if the entirety of the Earth were in plain view, right, from any given height, then it would be falsified that it is a globe because you can't see the entirety of the Earth if it's a globe, as we've just established. So when you say that it's either that we can see forever or we don't, I guess that is a true dichotomy. But the idea here being you only have to be able to see the size of the Earth, that distance, which is obviously less than 93 billion light years. So my view is entirely coherent and consistent. So I honestly don't understand why you're keep on implying, or no, you're not even implying, you're directly stating that it's unfalsifiable when I've given you two examples of how it is falsifiable. And to that, you just say they're unreasonable because you don't see forever, right? And then I ask you, well, under your view, how far can we see? And I get Rayleigh criterion, the root of the 2,
Inverse
5.
law of square.
Yeah. I just get random terms that aren't giving me
No,
a distance value
no,
at
that's not.
all.
That wasn't
If
random
you
terms.
apply them, they will.
So then apply them and give me a distance.
Do you
Go do
realize
that
that
yourself, buddy.
do you realize
Well,
that you
it's
are
your claim. Why would I back up
No,
your
it's your
claim?
claim.
No,
Hold
my
on.
claim is that you can see sufficiently far to see
Look,
the entirety of the Earth if it
Rich.
were not a globe.
Rich, this is okay. Do you
How-
know why it's an unfalsifiable claim to say that we can see 93 billion light years away? How do you know that?
Okay, another red herring.
No, how do
I'm
you
going
know
to take
that?
my leave because you guys are just digging the hole deeper.
Yeah, okay. We can
I'm
just
not
see
sure what
93 billion
holiday
miles
and
away just because.
93
I mean,
billion.
I gave a value, right? I
You
gave a
don't-
value to the
Yeah. How
the
do you
observable
know?
universe.
Oh,
It's the
we can make
distance
shit up
measured to
too.
the of the observable universe. That's how I know.
Rich,
Wait.
do I have to mute you every time someone else is talking so you don't interrupt them?
You're interrupting him. You're the ones interrupting Rich. He's talking and you're saying, no, like you guys are being the hypocrites that are interrupting Rich.
I haven't interrupted him once, more realistically. I haven't interrupted anybody.
You have. You guys are
No,
going
I
nuts.
haven't.
It's wrong, incorrect, like
All right, well, let's
like
all
Okay,
go
if
one
you're
at a
just
time.
look,
Stop.
this is not
Stop
useful.
this. Just stop. I'm in. Just
He's in.
stop. Get back to the topic, and let's all go one at a time. Don't interrupt people. If you interrupt, I'm just going to mute you till the combo's over. All right.
Awesome. So to falsify or verify the shape of the Earth, we go up high enough to see the Earth in its entirety, which presumes we know the size and shape of the Earth in its entirety ahead of time. How did you verify the shape and size of the Earth in its entirety ahead of time to go up and verify the size and shape of the Earth in its entirety? Do you see how ridiculous that is?
That's a
Not
ridiculous.
mentioning how
That's a
high you need to
ridiculous
go.
critique because you don't need to know the size of or shape of the Earth. Well, you may need to know the size, but the shape is completely irrelevant, right? If you go up high enough and you can see the entirety of the Earth, you have to know that you're seeing the size that is the entirety of the Earth. I grant you that, but you don't need to know that it's a sphere or a plane in order to do so.
And
And how do you conceive it in its entirety in the first place?
do you realize that you can go up to like 40 kilometers? That's like your limit.
Oh.
Like human here, everybody here can like put up camera on balloon and send a balloon up there, and it's gonna end up around 40 kilometers. There's like nothing else for you. How are you gonna go high enough to verify it? It's impossible for you to verify it. It's impossible claim to go high enough to see entirety of the Earth, if it even was banana or whatever. It's like 40 kilometers. In 40 kilometers, every single camera gonna show you flat horizon into your eye level. That's everything
You're taking what is a thought experiment and trying to. You are taking something that is a thought experiment, right? And you are trying to impose physical means when it is a hypothetical. If the Earth was not a globe and we were able to get sufficient distance away that we're able to see the entirety of it, that would falsify. Okay, where's the muting him for talking over me, huh? Is there going to be any semblance of?
I don't know what his screen name was. Hold
no
on, man.
Globe Domo.
What was his screen name, please? I can't
No
find
Globe
him.
Domo.
Just let him speak, Dom. It's no Globe Domo. Go ahead, Rich.
I was like nearly finished what I was saying as well.
Go ahead.
So if we do the thought experiment, there's no need to impose some physical boundary that like Rich is so fat a plane can't get him high enough to see this. Like saying something that's a joke, a self-deprecating joke on my behalf to point out how pointless it is. Because in the thought experiment, we're saying if the Earth is a plane, you are hypothetically able to get to a particular height, at which point you can see the entirety of it. We can say that is all of it, and then we say that is not a globe. That is the falsification, right? But to say that I can't go do that thing doesn't mean that it's unfalsifiable. It's ridiculous. Because to that, I would just say, of course we can't go do that thing because the Earth is a fucking globe. We can't falsify something that it is, but that doesn't make it unfalsifiable.
Yeah, so I have an orb that it levitates, but only when no one is looking at it. That is an unfalsifiable claim. You would agree?
That is absolutely falsifiable.
The thing is, dude, we know that we're not seeing geometrically. Like you guys admit it on the globe. I would admit it for us. Like we're not seeing things in their geometric position in the distance. So where do you go from there? Anything left is just guesswork when you're doing just
do you
long
need me
distance
to
optical
explain
things.
how? Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy. I thought you were done.
No, I paused. Go ahead.
No worries, man. Gally, do you want me to explain how that's falsifiable?
Is it logically falsifiable or theoretically falsifiable? And do you know the difference?
Both.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you have a sensor that you place the ball on that can determine its weight digitally, and you have it in a locked room with no windows, and then you leave, and then you can look at the results.
So how do you know if no one's observing it? You're observing it if you use a
that's
sensor.
under it.
The sensor is observing it, yeah.
The sensor does not have eyes. It is determining the weight that's being pressed upon the pad.
That's an argument of semantics. The sensor is observing it. What does the sensor do?
Weighs the ball.
It what? Sorry, what, Rich?
Weighs the ball.
the sensor weighs something, but the sensor,
Yeah,
how does it weigh something? It doesn't have
by
hands. It doesn't have
determining the amount of
scales.
force on it.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole sensor doesn't have eyes. You're just trying to. That's a reification fallacy. How about a god exists who hides himself in such a way that that no test can ever detect him?
Yeah, I already said
Can
in
you
text
falsify
earlier
that?
that a claim of a deist god is unfalsifiable.
Right. So is your claim of the globe, where you go up high
No.
enough to see the. So is your claim where you go up high enough to see the Earth in its entirety. It presumes you know the size of the Earth in its entirety. It also presumes there's no limit to your vision. So how do you justify that there's no limit to your vision?
These would all be axioms under which the thought experiment occurs, right? I have a distance that I know light can travel, right? I have a presumed size of the globe. If we go up to a particular distance and are able to see that entire size, right, then it would falsify it. Like me going up high enough and seeing the entire Earth, falsifying the globe, presumes I have eyes as well. I presumes a lot, right? These are all things that are consistent under my view. So pointing out that there are other assumptions that are occurring at the same time is entirely fruitless.
Just because there's reasonable presumptions doesn't mean there aren't unreasonable presumptions. So you don't need to troll by pointing out, oh, I also presume I have eyes. We don't need to troll. Look, if you assume that we can see 93 billion light years, how do you justify that claim? Also, train tracks converge. Why do they do that? Do you know why train tracks converge?
Yes, they do so based on perspective, but this is again entirely diverting from the entire point. If the assumptions laid out are true, and we do what I say, then it would falsify the globe. That's the entirety of the point. If you want to disagree with one of the underlying assumptions, you can do so, but just to object to them and say we don't know that, I mean, you're kind of you're avoiding the entirety of the hypothetical for fear of finding out what the conclusion would be, I guess.
No, I mean, your claim is that if you go up high enough, you could see. So, like, say you want to falsify the globe, you go up high enough, you could see the flat Earth in its entirety. How do you know the size of the flat Earth in its entirety to say that you would be able to see it if it was flat or planar?
It's an assumption within the hypothetical. It's saying if I see the entirety of the Earth and there is no side hidden from me, then it cannot be a globe.
Right, that presumes that you would be able to, which presumes that you know
Oh
the
my
shape of
god,
the Earth
dude.
or the size of the Earth. Stop interrupting.
Jesus Christ.
If I had a car that could go at the speed of light, I could travel a light year in a year. Well, that presumes a car can go that fast. Well, that presumes the tires won't pop. Well, that presumes there's a road long enough. Still follows.
Right, yeah, you're equating reasonable presumptions with unreasonable presumptions.
Oh my. Oh, yeah.
There is a difference. There is a big
Sorry,
difference.
Yeah,
It-
one's on
there-
one side of an arbitrary line, the other's on the other.
No, it's a reasonable presumption to assume that car that you just spoke about has tires because it's a car. What's not reasonable is that it can travel as fast as the speed of light. Do you see the difference?
Would I be able to travel a light year in a year if I had a car that could go the speed of light?
I don't think you understood the difference.
Go a
No,
light
apparently
year
you
in
didn't
a
understand
year.
my point at all, right? It's if I have a car that can go the speed of light, I would travel a 1 light year in a year, traveling at that speed continuously. That follows from the statement. Now, getting into, oh, well, is this the case? Is that the case? Would this work? Would that work? Is beside the point. Okay, what are you going to interrupt me with now? What?
I'm going to ask you, so do you think it's a reasonable presumption to assume that we can see 93 billion light years away or trillion light years away, whatever you said?
Yes.
Do you think that's a reasonable presumption?
Yes, I am not scared of
What
large
is your
numbers.
what is your reason for that? Like, what's your justification for believing that?
That's the extent of the observable universe. And using things such as parallax, we are able to deduce the approximate distance of certain celestial objects, at the end of which is that 93 billion light year mark.
How do you know something is 93 billion light years away without actually going that distance?
Were you not listening?
I asked you a simple question.
I know, and then I gave you an answer, and then you asked me the same question again.
Yeah, how do you know that that object that you're seeing in the sky is 93 billion light years away?
Because the distance is deduced utilizing measurements of celestial objects
What
and
measurements?
parallax.
It's a 93 billion mile long ruler?
Is that the only way to take a measurement is with a ruler?
No, that's what I'm asking you. What measurements?
Yeah, so if a ruler's not the only way that you can take a measurement, and then I say there's a measurement of this distance, why would you then assume that it has to be by a ruler?
No, it doesn't have to be by a ruler. I'm asking you, what instruments did you use to measure that? I gave an example of what an instrument is, a ruler. Telescope. How does a telescope determine how far away something is?
Via parallax. And red and blue light shift in spectroscopy. Thank you, JAs.
A lot of that's based on assumption. None of that's validated, is it? It's all speculative.
You good? You get it now?
How have you confirmed parallax and redshift and blue shift to be accurate?
I told you he was going to do this. He's just going to.
What's the necessary step within confirmation in your view?
Yeah, it's just unfalsifiable claim backed by unfalsifiable claim backed by unfalsifiable. It's just going to be ad nauseum.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
what he does
absurd.
every time you talk to him in
Nope,
chat.
you're
he does
lying
the
again.
same exact
I've provided
thing.
why it's a falsifiable claim. I've provided the falsifiable method upon which that distance is measured. If you want to just keep lying, like you can, but I probably won't stick around that much.
No, falsifiability must be reasonable in order for it to be meaningful in rational discourse. A claim that is only falsifiable in a way that's logically or physically impossible is effectively unjustifiable. So when you say like, oh, if you see 20,000 kilometers, then yeah, you could falsify the globe. Or if you go up high enough to see the Earth in its entirety, yeah, you could falsify the globe. Like, these are not within reason. So when you say that, no, that doesn't give us a falsifying factor. That's just saying it's a theoretical falsification. It's not a practical falsification. So unfalsifiable claim backed by unfalsifiable claim, etc.
What is your metric for reasonability?
How high up would you need to be to see the Earth in its entirety, Rich?
What? Answer the question. What's your metric to base reasonability on?
How high up do you need to see the Earth in its entirety, Rich?
Everyone can hear him tap dancing away from my question, can't they? He made a statement that includes the reasonability of any given premise, yet he has no way to determine the reasonability of a premise other than his arbitrarily biased position.
I made an argument and you answered my argument with a question, and now you're complaining that I'm asking a qualifier question.
Yeah, you did the same thing, Rich. When I asked
you
what
not a qualifying question to anything that I've asked.
It is a qualifying question. How high up?
Rich, he was being specific to your claim, not a generalized what you think might be generally relevant. He was being specific to your case.
He didn't say relevant, Rob. He said reasonable.
How high up is perfectly reasonable to say how high up do you need to go?
But I don't know. I don't know how high. I've been giving no metric upon which you could say this is reasonable or this is unreasonable because it has not been provided.
I mean,
You
it
do
should
know
be
how
within the
high up because it's
mathematics.
your claim. It's your claim that at a certain distance up on a planar Earth, you would be able to see it in its entirety. If that's your claim, you do know how high up to see the Earth in its entirety because you're claiming it. Otherwise, how would you know it's reasonable?
Okay,
Duh.
Good question, Gally. That's a great question,
Thanks,
and I'm going to
you.
answer it for you, okay? I know that something is immediately
All right.
unreasonable when it is shown to be impossible. Once it's shown to be impossible, then it is unreasonable. And to show something is logically impossible is that it contains a contradiction.
So
Boom!
how high
Slap!
up, Rich?
Wrecked!
How high up?
Annihilated! Globe slapped! He just had to
Jesus.
laugh and then run because he knew he just got fucked
What was the contradiction?
up.
I missed it. What was the contradiction?
There isn't one. That's why it's not unreasonable.
There
My
isn't one.
metric for whether or not something is reasonable is whether or not it contains a contradiction. If it contains a contradiction, it's unreasonable. What I have claimed does not contain a contradiction, so therefore it is not unreasonable. When I asked that same question across the aisle, I got how high up did you go? How high up did you go? How high up did you go?
All right, so you're saying if it doesn't contain a contradiction, it's reasonable. So would it be reasonable for me to say next week you'll be blowing some dude?
I guess not.
Well, I guess we know what you're doing next week. Boom, slap, some gay, stupid saying thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You can falsify globe Earth if you go up high enough to see the Earth in its entirety. Right,
Yeah,
Rich?
that's correct. Yep.
How high up do you have to go?
I don't know.
Okay.
Right. Um, okay. You
What's so
good?
So,
confusing about that?
so how do you know it's reasonable if you don't even know how high up you have to go to see the Earth in its entirety?
It literally just got done explaining it. It doesn't contain a contradiction.
Yeah, I just presented you with something that you didn't answer.
By the way, if Fear Rigger's talking, I have him turned down, so I can't hear him.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Of course you do. That's a good way to overtalk him too, so that nobody can hear what he has to say.
Hey,
You
he's just
should
gonna
really
dodge the
shouldn't be
question.
turning people down. You're ruining the channel.
Well, when you mute someone, it reminds me of when Witsit went to Antarctica and he lied about his vape.
Yeah, Galatrax is making good points in chat. Would I have to go up 200 million miles high to see the Earth in its entirety?
Irrelevant.
How high, Rich? If there's no height, it's not reasonable.
What color is your car that can go the speed of light?
You could never see the whole thing in its entirety because only half of it's even lit up by the sun. You'd never be able to see the whole thing, no matter what. Ever.
Okay.
All right, so you're saying if it doesn't contain a contradiction, it's reasonable. So would it be reasonable for me to say next week you'll be blowing some dude?
I guess not.
Well, I guess we know what you're doing next week. Boom, slap, some gay, stupid saying thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You can falsify globe Earth if you go up high enough to see the Earth in its entirety. Right, Rich?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
How high up do you have to go?
I don't know.
Okay.
Why?
What's
Okay,
so
you good?
confusing about that?
So how do you know it's reasonable if you don't even know how high up you have to go to see the Earth in its entirety?
It literally just got done explaining it. It doesn't contain a contradiction.
Yeah, I just presented you with something that you didn't answer.
By the way, if Pure Rigor's talking, I have him turned down, so I can't hear him.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Of course you do. That's a good way to overtalk him too, so that nobody can hear what he has to say.
Hey, he's
You
just
should
gonna
really
dodge the
shouldn't be
question.
turning people down. You're ruining the channel.
Well, when you mute someone, it reminds me of when Witsit went to Antarctica and he lied about his vape.
Yeah, Galatrax is making good points in chat. Would I have to go up 200 million miles high to see the Earth in its entirety?
Irrelevant.
How high, Rich? If there's no height, it's not reasonable.
What color is your car that can go the speed of light?
You could never see the whole thing in its entirety because only half of it's even lit up by the sun. You'd never be able to see the whole thing, no matter what. Ever.
May I
Planar or
interrupt?
globular.
Gio, have you been listening? This has
Yeah,
been crazy.
how high up would you have to go to see half of a sphere?
No, I just kind of got in here.
I've been asking Rich, I said, okay, is there a way to falsify the globe from your point of view? He gave me two scenarios. One, he said, you'd have to be able to see something 20,000 kilometers away. That was the first thing. The second thing is, you'd have to go up high enough, we don't know how high, it's arbitrary apparently, to see the Earth in its entirety.
No.
Two unreasonable, unfalsifiable things to do. Like, we can't falsify that.
Of course you can.
Oh, Star, yes.
Of course you
My
can.
boy.
We
My boy.
told you what you need to do. You need to become an astronaut. That's what you need to become. But if
Sorry, I don't know if you were here before.
you're not even trying.
They're saying that the globe is a religious claim. I asked what they meant by that, and certain people are saying that that means that it's unfalsifiable. I've provided those two different ways that we would be able to falsify the globe in our current understanding of it. And their questions are only, minute portions of the hypothetical. They're not actually addressing the fact that it is, in fact, it is in fact falsifiable via these methods. I don't have to have gone that high and done it. I don't have to give you a height upon which it would be possible because it is all within the hypothetical. If you are at sufficient height to see the entirety of the Earth,
sufficient height,
then it will. You complain a lot for someone who interrupts.
Yeah, that was a Freudian slip you had there too.
Thanks for interrupting too, Rob. Nice to hear you.
I waited till there was no one talking.
No,
Thank you.
because I got interrupted and I was trying to remember where I was in what I was saying. So thanks for nothing again.
You said sufficient height. What is sufficient height? It's a very reasonable question.
Yeah, like sufficient amount of cake, right?
Hey, Star, I'm not talking to you, bro.
I'm talking to you.
Well, he asked Rich, so please don't interrupt. What were you saying? Yeah, how high, Rich?
It's irrelevant because it's entailed within the thought.
And how do you know it's sufficient?
By saying that it's sufficient.
You're just saying it's sufficient.
Matter.
What's the sufficient height?
It doesn't matter what label you put on it, right? It is a distance from which you can see the entirety of the Earth. If that distance exists and you go there and you see the entirety of the Earth as it's not a globe, then you've falsified the globe. This concludes the thought experiment.
Yeah, but you have to say how high, because like if you had
you don't.
If you had something on the floor, like a camera or something, and you didn't know what shape the floor was, and you had to get up, you're moving the camera up off the floor. Obviously, moving it up a quarter of an inch is probably not going to give you the information you need. 1 inch, probably not. 1.5 inches, probably not. But there would be some point at which you would be able to see whether the ground was curving or whether it was globular or whether it was planar. You're still
All
not
right,
going to see the whole
with the
Earth on a
assumption
yeah.
with the assumption that our current understanding of the entirety of the Earth is the size that we know it is, right? Then I would say probably about in the vicinity of 300,000 kilometers away.
So
Would
you'd
work.
have to know the size of the Earth ahead of time for this
Yeah,
for this hypothetical to
obviously,
even.
it's
Okay, well that's
entailed
what's in
within the
question.
hypothetical. It's
But that's
entailed within the question to say we see the entirety of the Earth.
all right. So you're
That's
assuming
the
you
point.
know the entirety of the Earth, right? The globe. Okay. So how high do I have to be to see the entirety?
You will definitely see it at 300,000
So 300,000 what?
kilometers. I just said that.
300,000 kilometers up. So I have to go 300,000 kilometers up in the sky to falsify the globe.
That's like 186,000 miles. That's like three-quarters or
I'd almost have to
whatever it
go
is
to the
way to the
moon,
moon.
Geo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd almost have to go to
Oh
the
yeah, I
moon
was thinking
to
of
prove that the
where
Earth
have
is
we
not a globe.
seen? I was thinking where have we seen the Earth from to get an idea that we're seeing all of it. I thought of on the moon. I didn't want to say the distance of the moon, so I undershot it to a round number of 300,000. At that point, with our current understanding of the size of the Earth, holding that assumption continuous as is stated in the hypothetical, and I see, it's just like looking at a map on my old geography teacher's wall, then I've falsified the globe.
So, Geo, just to catch you up, that's the reason why he was called a religious zealot.
For
Because there's no way to
explaining how it is falsifiable.
There's no way. You didn't give any falsifiable method, like methods to actually falsify the globe claim. You gave two unreasonable methods. I have to go 300,000 kilometers in the sky.
You can call them unreasonable if you want to, but you can't say that they're unfalsifiable.
No, dude. If you make an unreasonable method to falsify your claim, that's what makes it unfalsifiable. Going 300,000 kilometers up in the sky is unreasonable to ask someone to do.
How did you determine that?
What do you mean? How high can you go in the sky right now, Rich?
Okay, so your standard is based on the abilities of any given person.
Yeah, no shit.
That's what reasonable means to you. Okay. Interesting.
I've not been to Siberia and I have no interest in going to Siberia. That means Siberia is unfalsifiable.
You can't go to Siberia.
No, I can't.
Whoa. Don't be unreasonable now.
You can go to Siberia.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. You can get a plane. You can go to Siberia. It's not unreasonable. I can't go 300,000 kilometers in the sky, guys.
You get what we're saying, right, Beast? You get what we're saying.
I cannot travel 8,000 miles. I'm sorry. I cannot go to Siberia. I'm not going. I cannot go there.
His legs will get tired.
Are you equating
We can.
these two
Sorry if you don't have enough
going
money,
to
but
a real
I can go to
Yeah, exactly. I don't have enough money. I don't.
All right. Well, sorry you don't have the money, but we all can. So anyone else can.
Okay. So reasonability is based on the not even any given person. It's the average of people's.
Right. We got them now. So they can go.
That you guys got what?
Oh,
what are you talking about?
Again.
Don't interrupt him. Why are you interrupting him?
This guy's screaming. I've asked him a million times not to scream on the live stream, so we're just gonna leave him on mute.
Thank you.
Well, as he was emphatically going into, we got you guys because you're now stating that you're able to go to Siberia, but he can't, right? So there may be people that could go to space, but you can't. So having this standard of as something is reasonable, whether or not the average person is able to do it, is in itself unreasonable, isn't
I
it?
could bring them. I could pick this retard up, throw him in a plane with me, pay for his way over there. Simple.
Yeah, what you're
Can you
talking
bring
about.
me 80 million miles down the road to see the nearest star? To confirm your distance? Or is it unfalsifiable? Because I'm pretty sure it's unfalsifiable. You just can't comprehend that.
It's pretty wild, dude. It's crazy. There's nothing here on Earth that I can do to falsify the globe.
That's why it's
No, you
religious.
need to go. Yeah, you
It's a
need to go
powerful model.
300,000 kilometers above it in order to do that. And
Yeah, there's
seems
nothing I
reasonable
can
to
do.
everyone here, right?
But would you say you going to Antarctica and falling off of the giant ice wall, that would falsify it?
What ice wall?
Yeah. By the way, I didn't.
Oh.
Go ahead, Roots.
I was just saying that's not what we claim.
Doesn't matter. It would still falsify the globe.
May I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead, Gio. Sorry, that was all I was saying.
Yeah, you better sit down.
No, I was just saying before the Siberia thing, these guys were trying to like weave in some argument that other people had said just because I said people can go there. So it's not really relevant. I mean, it just wasn't really a very good faith way to respond to what I said. He was just saying he can't go to Siberia. Obviously, people can go to Siberia. Yeah, you have to have the money to go, I guess, but it's not outside of the realm of being able to do that. Going to 300,000 miles. Why is this guy interrupting? Going to 300,000 miles is impossible for any of us to do.
Kilometers.
What percentage of the population could go to Siberia? Whatever that percentage is, who can just afford a plane ticket? So those are pretty different.
May I interrupt?
No one's saying they're the exact same thing. What it was hinting at was the standard by which you claim something is reasonable or unreasonable. What is your standard for what is reasonable and what is unreasonable, Gio?
I didn't make that argument. I don't really use that phrase because I think reasonability is very subjective. So you'll never hear me say that in an argument ever. So I don't use that phrase because reasonability has to do with it's very, very subjective. What you find reasonable may be what someone else finds unreasonable, and then you can just kind of bang on about it back and forth all day. So
Right.
I don't use that in argumentation ever. So
that
that's the
works
thing.
well.
There's these kind of group debate styles. Just because I came in and said one thing doesn't mean that like what I was saying linked to what anyone else said. About reasonability. So
Well, it was consistent with exactly what they were saying, and that's great. So, in your opinion, you wouldn't say what you're presenting is an unreasonable falsification method. You would never say that, right? Not that you can think of. Like, I'm not going to say never, but
sorry, say it again. I was looking at a
yeah.
DM.
You wouldn't go around saying that something is an unreasonable falsification method.
State your methods again for Gio because he wasn't here. Go ahead and say the same one.
This gets way more to the root. We don't have to go around in the weeds where you are right now. Gio, would you ever use the term unreasonable falsification method?
I don't know if I'd use the word unreasonable, but I mean, there's other words I might use. But the thing is, for example, if somebody said that in order to test whether I can fly, I have to jump off my roof and fall on the ground and maybe kill myself. Yeah, that obviously is not practical. There's other words I might use, but I'm just saying that's obviously not. Yeah, even if you want to use the word reasonable in that case, like that's not a fair thing to say. Well, the only to prove your point, you have to jump off of a skyscraper to see that you can't fly. So yeah, there are some things that are like.
Ask him what his method was.
Because you think.
No, hang on. Rich,
no, I need to respond to that. I need to respond to that.
He gave you an example.
But it's unreasonable to assume that would be the only way that you could figure out that you could fly, right? There's a contradiction there because what's being said is that you have to go and jump off a building in order to know you can fly. And your position is you don't have to jump off the building. You could be able to tell you could fly in other ways, right? So in my view, something is unreasonable when it makes a contradiction on my current position, right? That's how I use it.
So again, I was asking you, are there any other ways to falsify the globe? So far, you gave me two that, in my opinion, my worldview, my standard, are unreasonable.
I can't keep doing this. Like, you're just gonna bleed me out of all of my reasons. Then what am I gonna do? So, in my view, something is unreasonable when it makes a contradiction on my current position. Right?
Yeah.
With the assumption that our current understanding of the entirety of the Earth is the size that we know it is, right? Then I would say probably about in the vicinity of 300,000 kilometers away.
So
Would
you'd
work.
have to know the size of the Earth ahead of time for this
Yeah.
for this hypothetical
Obviously,
to even.
it's
Okay, well that's
entailed
what's in
within the
question.
hypothetical. It's
But that's
entailed within the question to say we see the entirety of the Earth. At that point, with our current understanding of the size of the Earth, holding that assumption continuous as is stated in the hypothetical, and I see, it's just like looking at a map on my old geography teacher's wall, then I've falsified the globe.
Who knows, right? Fuck, man.
All
All
right,
the
I got a
opinions.
question, if I can ask it. Does anyone in here assert that the belief in the globe is a religious belief? Then, so it's falsifiable. What else would make it religious?
Go in your bathroom, you know what I mean?
What do you mean you made it unfalsifiable? You claimed
No,
that if we can see 20,000 kilometers away and view something, then that would prove that the globe is falsified.
That would falsify the globe. Yep.
20,000 kilometers away.
Yeah. Yep. Shown
you're
that it
asking
is
for the
falsifiable. No, I've shown you that it is falsifiable. In what other sense would you say that it's religious?
Oh, you're asking for an impossibility. That's why it's unfalsifiable.
It's the only reason that it would be impossible is if it is a globe. If it is a globe, then we cannot see 20,000 kilometers away. That doesn't make it unfalsifiable. The fact is, if we were able to see that far, it would falsify the globe. The fact that we're on a globe means that it's impossible to see that far.
This is crazy, dude. So if I can flat Earth conceptual model, okay, there's atmos between you and whatever object you're looking at. So the idea that you can see forever and I should be able to see Mount Everest from Las Vegas is ridiculous, dude. There's so much shit.
I know you like to arbitrarily call things ridiculous and silly. I get that. But
Hang on. It was your claim that if you could go up and see all the continents, that would falsify the globe, which stop interrupting, which implies that we can see forever. So why would we need to substantiate or negate that we can't see forever? It's your claim that would falsify the globe if you went up high enough and saw the continents. So why would we need to negate that your claim that we can see forever? You need to substantiate that we can see forever because that's your claim.
Bingo.
Incorrect. The size of the Earth, as it is not infinite. So I wouldn't need to claim that we see forever in order to see the entirety of the Earth.
Bingo.
Incorrect. The size of the Earth, as it is not infinite. So I wouldn't need to claim that we see forever in order to see the entirety of the Earth.
Do you have Jeremy muted, Rich? Because you just talked all over him.
Yeah,
Jeremy,
you're
you're roboting.
roboting. Yeah, he sounds like shit. Jeremy, wait till you get a better signal, dude.
Now you said incorrect, Rich. Why?
Because the Earth is not infinite in size, so we do not need to be able to see forever in order to see all of it.
But you do believe that we can
Yeah,
see
I think
forever.
you're
You
good now,
claimed
right?
that.
So
I not once claimed that.
You said either we can see forever or there's a limit to our vision.
That's not a claim that we can see forever.
So you believe there's a limit to our vision?
Absolutely.
Okay, what's that
Hey,
limit?
we're in the same boat.
Why are we? No, we're not in the same boat because it's for different reasons. The only
Is it
reason
that?
that we're able to see an object is because light emanating from that object has had enough time to travel the distance towards us.
So what's the limit that we can
that's not
see
true
in
though,
your
because you
worldview?
can't see Canada.
12,497
Come on, I know
miles
I'm better now. I'm on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you sound better now, Jeremy.
I know. Can I just slip in here real quick? There's a lot
93
of
billion
factors
light
that depends
years.
on if you.
Hang on, Rich.
Come on, man.
We
Can
could
you get
see
Jeremy in there
93.
just for a sec?
Sure. If you want to hop in, go for it.
I'm good, dude. I'm good.
That's fine then. If his claim is that we could see 93 billion light years, to substantiate his previous claim that we can falsify the Earth if we went up and saw it in its entirety, we can falsify the globe, and then we say no because you don't see forever, and he's like, yeah, I don't think you see forever. I think you could see up to 93 billion light years. Like, do you guys see how retarded this is? And this is why we accuse you of being a religious zealot, because that's what a religious person says.
Now we have
Calling
to
it
be able to
retarded
falsify.
and just
Now we have
hand
to be able
waving
to
it is
falsify
not a
that
response to the
that there's
I
something
didn't call it retarded
93
hand-waving. I
billion
made
miles.
an entire argument, and then I said, do you see how retarded this is? And do you see how much of a religious zealot you are? I didn't
No.
just do that. I made a point and then did that, and you hand-waved my point and started going, oh, you're using fallacies.
You can falsify globe Earth if you go up high enough to see the Earth in its entirety. Right, Rich?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
How high up do you have to go?
I don't know.
Okay.
Right. Okay. You good?
So how do you know it's reasonable if you don't even know how high up you have to go to see the Earth in its entirety?
It literally just got done explaining it. It doesn't contain a contradiction. What's being said is that you have to go and jump off a building in order to know you can fly. And your position is you don't have to jump off the building. You could be able to tell you could fly in other ways, right? So in my view, something is unreasonable when it makes a contradiction on my current position, right? That's how I use it.
So again, I was asking you, are there any other ways to falsify the globe? So far, you gave me two that, in my opinion, my worldview, my standard, are unreasonable.
I can't keep doing this. Like, you're just gonna bleed me out of all of my reasons. Then what am I gonna do? What's gonna happen when I run out of methods, guys? Is that
To
when you
say that
win?
you can go 300,000 kilometers up, and that's how we can falsify the globe, and then to say that that's reasonable.
May I interrupt?
Incredulity.
Why can't I just finish my point before you
empty
interrupt?
incredulity.
I mean, you don't really have.
It's a good point. No, it's
No,
a good point.
you did, but
You need the influence.
Yeah, you can interrupt. Star just cannot. Star is the only one that cannot interrupt.
Okay, I won't finish my point. All good.
I just wanted to say, he said 300,000 because he isn't like saying it because he's 100% sure that like you have to go at least 300,000. Like you can try less, like you can use you can basically use mathematics, like you can use geometry to figure out how far high up how high up you need to go to see the edge of the Earth.
Yeah, but if we use the word real, let me just jump in. If we use the word realistic, it's not realistic that, dude, if somebody could go up to check what the shape of the Earth was by going up at altitude, it would have been done, dude. These conversations have been raging for a decade now. Somebody would have done it. No one's done it. It's obviously unrealistic on every level. Plus, there's like restrictions from the government, like the NOAA. There's flight restrictions of altitudes, and let alone all the finances that it would cost to have your own entire rocket company. So it is completely unrealistic. So in a debate right now amongst, if we want to call ourselves civilians of the world, as it were, who are just regular people that were born in a hospital and stamped with a social security number and all the rest of that, it's obviously completely unrealistic. So as a debate point, yeah, it's pretty moot.
No, but I disagree with you at the end there, because something being unrealistic doesn't make it logically follow that it would refute a position. If you get a particular result from a hypothetical, it will refute a particular position. It's just logical, right? It's nothing about whether or not it's possible, or it's not about whether or not it's realistic, because you can have something is unintuitive that does exist, and you can have things that can't exist. Like you cannot have a pot that is 100% made of steel and out of copper at the same time. That's a contradiction.
So, Galatrax, you want to make your point now?
Yeah, 3 in 1 billion people have been up that high. It's completely unreasonable and unrealistic to have the expectation that there's a way to falsify your religious zealot claim.
I don't. Unrealistic's fine. Unreasonable is still unjustified.
Yeah, so do you have a realistic way to falsify your religious zealot claim, or is it all unrealistic things that no one can do, or 3 in 1 billion people can do?
Yeah, unrealistic is based on what any of us are able to do in real life, right? So
that's what I was asking.
I'm saying that it's unrealistic. No, you were talking about unreasonable.
Okay,
no, he's asking the same thing I am. He was asking the same thing I am. I'm just using a word that you're not, so sensitive to. We mean the same thing. You just don't like the word unreasonable, so we're using a different word.
How could they mean the same? Why would they mean the same thing?
Can I just?
Because we mean the
here?
same thing by them. You're just being bad faith.
I guess they both start with the letter UN. They're pretty similar.
The term
Rich, can you answer the question? Now that we've elaborated on what we've meant, can you answer the question or not?
Yeah, whether or not a hypothetical is unrealistic or realistic does not change the fact of whether or not it would refute any given position.
All right, but I don't know that anyone's arguing whether it would or wouldn't refute it. If the Earth was a sphere and you could go to 186,000 miles or whatever you said, 300,000 kilometers, I don't think anyone in here is saying that it wouldn't look like a ball if it was a ball. The question is, right? But it's sort of like the thing I said. Like if you said, "Well, dude, the only way to fall," like if you said humans can fly, and I said, "No, they can't." I said, "How do I test that?" You're like, "You got to go up to a skyscraper and jump off the top." Dude, that is obviously not a very realistic or a reasonable, etc., whatever words you want to use, way to say to falsify my argument. You have to go jump off a bridge and risk your life.
So
but I'm not saying that you have to go do a particular thing, right? That's the difference. It's if
I reframe the question to you, Rich.
You were to go and jump off a building, you will fly. Saying that is a falsifiable claim. So then we agree.
Yeah, but the point is a little bit is that if it's your position, you should have falsified it, is the idea, I think, behind this, is that the idea is that if you're claiming it, you should have had the ways to falsify it. So if your way to falsify it for yourself is doing something that's impossible or unrealistic, then that goes back to the question, why do you believe it if you haven't falsified it and don't even have a realistic way of doing so?
What?
Okay.
They are saying that the globe is unfalsifiable. I provide a method by which it could be falsified. Nothing about that is talked. It does not matter.
Well, then why do you believe it if you haven't done it? You haven't falsified your own belief.
It's like or verified. It's the same thing.
It's like
you haven't falsified your own idea, which is maybe why
I haven't gone and done that particular example, but no one said was in the room asking how has someone falsified the globe, right? Like that's where I'm just answering how it could be possible.
Is about that
hypothetically. Logically.
No, the whole belief, Rich. We're talking about the belief.
Yeah, but Geo
See,
just got
you
him.
can't
His
go back and
entire
forth between realistic and reasonable. Like this is a
No,
huge
we had to
conflation that's
switch.
occurring.
We had to
This is a
switch to
huge
realistic.
conflation
No,
that
you
is
shouldn't have switched.
occurring
It is
because
unreasonable.
Rich,
It's
we had to
just
switch
it's
to the word
unreasonable.
unrealistic.
So there is a term
why
called.
would I get
Listen,
why did I get
There
overtalked? You
Rich, I've been
interrupted
trying to
me.
say this for a while. There is a term called an unreasonable falsification method, okay? And it's a method that's logically possible, but it's considered unreasonable because it's either irrelevant, impractical, or unfair. So if it's not practically testable or unrealistic or with irrelevant standards, impossible standards, then that becomes unreasonable. So there is a term called an unreasonable falsification method. So you're just getting stuck on the word. We shouldn't really be giving you any ground here. It's the same argument.
I'd like
It is unreasonable.
if I could.
Where did you get this? Just from an AI overview, or
He's already done though. He's already done. Geo
I'm
got him.
genuinely
He said he
curious because
takes
I'm
it on
reading that
faith.
now.
He
Is
said he
that not
takes the
based on
information
sound
on
evidence
faith.
or
He's never
intentionally
confirmed
misleading?
anything. And yeah, it's a religion. Good job.
So
yeah, just Google it.
Rich, I'm going to reframe the question. Is there a realistic falsification method to falsify the globe in your mind?
Well, in order to say that, I have to understand exactly what the limits of unreasonable falsification methods are. So I need a moment.
I just told you, dude. There has to be practically testable. It has to be realistic, not to irrelevant standards. And it has to, and if it goes beyond the scope of the hypothesis, that's also considered unreasonable.
Right. And the fact that people have been, 384,000 kilometers from Earth on a little ship, I've like that because you guys don't assert that, it's going to seem unrealistic to you.
But that's a belief.
That's a belief, bro.
No, but yeah. So what you guys think is unrealistic, right, is based on what your position on that particular thing. So it's still
not
part
practically
of
testable.
my position. It's realistic.
But it's not practically testable, and that comes under the unreasonable.
It would be. If we've gone to the moon before, we can go back and we can practically do that.
But we're not talking about we. We're talking about us in here. We're not talking about other.
Well, then it's the true death of the conversation.
Well, you're doing an appeal to authority fallacy.
No, I'm not.
Yep.
You don't
Yes, you
understand fallacies, Gio. I really wouldn't throw them around, even though you're on the internet.
That's exactly what it is, though.
Okay, now you're disparaging my character, which is another fallacy. You don't know what I know about fallacies, first of all, and I do know what an appeal to authority fallacy is, and that's what you just did. You appeal to authority of people you think have been there that you haven't verified, and then you're using their testimony for proof of your thing that was supposed to be a practical falsification method. Yes, I know what the fallacy is.
And what's the fallacy when you tell someone their argument and misrepresent their position? What's that one?
Dude, we're not doing fallacy quizzing.
It's
Would you like to get
straw
back to the
man
actual conversation that you're now shifting from?
It's the straw man fallacy.
This
If I look outside, if I look outside and I see the ground is wet, right, and I say, "Oh, geez, must have rained," you wouldn't go, "You're affirming the consequent just because the ground is wet outside doesn't necessarily mean it's the case that."
That is affirming the consequent.
That's what it is.
That's exactly affirming the consequent.
I get it, but it's also reasonable to believe that it wasn't a giant squid that went by.
Well,
right?
why don't we actually?
Even though it's logically now we're doing logically possible as the standard, which going that far from the Earth is, and now you accept it.
Okay,
this is ridiculous. You guys are double speaking.
Let's go back to what you did. You appealed to an authority of other men who claims that they've been out to see the Earth as a ball. Could you admit that that was an appeal to authority, and we could move on?
Are all appeals to authority fallacious?
Yes.
Yes. So, Rich,
without direct evidence, yes.
So if you were to be intellectually honest, you'd have to say, you know what, guys, I agree. That is an appeal to authority. Let me try a different way, and we go from there.
As your proof, well, to be technically correct, an appeal to authority, you can appeal to authority, but if you're appealing to authority to prove your argument, to say, therefore, that's true, that's the fallacy. But you can appeal to authority. You can bring up an authority as evidence for your argument, right? You can bring that up.
The point that was being made,
therefore it's true. That's when it's a fallacious claim.
and it's obviously not what I did, because I said the reason that it is realistic, not the reason that it happened. I'm saying the reason that it is realistic for us to assert that we can go back, right, is because we've been there before. That's not an appeal to authority. You have to then you have to investigate. Yeah, we as humanity, come on, we're all on the same tier in the team in the end. Okay, it's.
Can all of us be astronauts? No.
You're using these
well,
guys.
We all are in our own little
their
way.
testimonial. You're using this authority testimonial to in your how to falsify your belief. So you're
What was
appealing
the
to
argument I
authority
made?
for the falsification.
What was the argument that I made in regards to the conclusion being they've been to
Those
the
men
moon?
have been out there to do the falsification that you're asking us to do, which is impractical, which was the original
It's an
point
appeal
of
to
the
the past.
No, I just asked you what was the argument I made that ended with the conclusion, therefore they've been to the moon.
That's an appeal to the past. That's also a logical fallacy.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk about the conversation that was just had. If you want to call that a fucking fallacy, I don't know what
Yeah,
to
but
do
that's
with it.
that's something that was either done
left.
or
He
believed to be done in the past. Doesn't mean it
left.
was true or true today. He left. Okay.
He left on
This
his own.
guy-
No one kicked him. I
guy's
assume.
something
I'll
else.
check. Yeah, no, he just left on his own.
Alright, so just to summarize that before I move on. In that conversation, someone has a belief that it's a globe. If that person wants to justify this belief and test it, they want to see if they can falsify it. How do they go about doing it without appealing to authority? So if they want to test it, so what's within the realm of what's realistic, reasonable? How could one tester falsify this position?
You can't. He never set a standard. He just danced from it. He just danced away from it endlessly.
I was just about to ask moralistically if he wants to step up, but he left as well.
No, I moved him to the hot mic room. He's chronically hot micing. Moralistically, did he come back? I moved him to the hot mic room. Yeah, dude, moralistically, you're hot micing over and over, bro. That's why you're getting server muted, because you see, we move people to hot mic room, but if you come back in still hot micing, we have no option but to server mute you. And then you're saying in text chat you're muted, so please get a hold of your mic. Don't hot mic, please. But yeah, go ahead. I think someone was asking if you wanted to speak up.
Yeah, sorry, I'm playing a game right now. That's why I forgot to mute. But yeah, I'm gonna say that was a very exciting debate from you guys. But honestly, it was a whole lot of interrupting and not getting the question right from I would say from both sides. Just to be fair, like one side kind of repeated the question, one side didn't understand the question well. But overall, it was pretty fun. It was a good laugh.
Okay, thanks for the meta-analysis. Do you want to continue the conversation? We don't need the meta-analysis, which is clearly biased, but you're pretending like you're being unbiased. So if someone has a belief in the globe and they want to justify and believe and test it, how can you falsify it? How does one go about doing it without appealing to authority?
How am I being biased?
Technically, it's just an analysis, not a meta-analysis.
Focus on the question, dude, please.
Well, I wasn't even in the conversation to start with. Like, I'm asking you, how am I being biased towards one side? Like,
It's okay, so now you want to have a meta conversation about the meta conversation. No, thank you. Do you want to continue the conversation? If someone has a belief in the globe, how do they go about testing, verifying, or falsifying it?
I wasn't in the conversation, so I won't be answering any questions.
Okay.
Well, actually, when you were talking, I kind of clipped in a little bit. I might have even slightly interrupted because I got excited. I said something. Do you remember what you were saying then when I kind of jumped in, when you were laying out what you were saying?
Yeah, I think it was before I was muted for the fourth time, but yeah. But basically, like, overall, I wasn't, like, actively in the debate that you guys were in. That, like, I don't know where that assumption came from. Like, I'm not in the debate. I want debate for today. I'm kind of tired. I just wanted to listen to the debate. Right.
Right, and just to be clear, you're muted because you're chronically hot micing.
Right, I forgot to mute. But yeah, that's fair.
You were told that.
Well,
and also, it doesn't have to be a debate.
Yeah, I kind of missed the whole beginning of all of this, so maybe I didn't know the full context. But I mean, if the
pretty
idea
much
is that
nailed it, Gio.
All right. Well, it's just like if somebody's saying they think there's a globe, and then if they've ideally they have falsified it themselves, or they've tested it or done something to falsify it themselves. So if they have, it seems like they should be able to say, "Hey, this is how I falsified it. This is how I know it's true." Then they'd be coming from with some solid knowledge, and then give somebody a practical way that they also can falsify it. Would be a good thing to have. And then if they haven't falsified it for themselves, then it's like, well, then why do they believe it in the first place? Is it just a blind belief? Is it just faith? Like what is, if they haven't run it through their own ways of falsifying it, and they should be able to give a practical way to do so.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's making a claim, that claim is their argument. They had a belief, they had a justification of that belief, they made an argument, and then if they don't know how they justified it, then they don't know how to falsify it. They don't have either of those things. It's just a belief, therefore they're a religious zealot, which is what he came in here asking about. So moralistically, if you believe that he owned us, you would also be a religious zealot. Because if you're agreeing with him, and he's a religious zealot, he doesn't have a verifiability factor, a falsifiability factor, a justifiability factor. He doesn't have any of these things. All he has is a belief that he's reifying, and you agree with him, so you're just as much of a religious zealot as he is.
Is that so, huh?
Yep.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to, right, what he was doing was just being idealistic about it. He was defending the idea instead of being pragmatic, right, and taking it like, is it practical in reality? And he was just arguing from that angle so we could run from every form of accountability.
He was just being fallacious. That was it. Just fallacious arguments. He doesn't realize it.
Real quick, more moralistically, you said you don't want to be involved in the debate, but you're in the text chat. Would you like to answer the question that was posed to Rich to see if you have a more justifiable response or what?
Just because I'm commenting on the debate doesn't mean that I'm actively in it. Like, I'm not participating in the debate as in debating people.
So what is your goal here, sir?
To listen to the debate. Is that allowed? I'm pretty sure listening is allowed.
Yes, it is allowed to listen and comment.
Well, yeah,
You have to
I'm
be a
doing
little-
that. I'm just commenting on, how people debated, and I'm not actively, I know you guys are trying to, push me to answer the question Rich already has answered, but I'm just saying I'm just here to listen and to comment.
How did he answer that question? You claim he answered that question. What question and how did he answer that? What question?
Why do you want me to repeat what he said?
You just claimed
He obviously doesn't want to be a part of the conversation.
Why?
Yeah, so
he
why
just
is
wants
he
to
claiming
throw
things?
his
Wasn't
2
the
cents in
question?
and run away.
Wasn't the
How am I
question?
running? Hold on. How am I running away when I literally said I don't want to participate? I'm not participating. I'm not answering.
Yeah,
any
just
questions.
throw your 2 cents in and run away then.
All right. Well, let me
Yeah,
just
if
say,
you're gonna claim
I
stuff,
think that the
yeah.
hold on. I think
Yes,
the
sir.
question was how is it? I think the question is how is it falsifiable? Right. That was the question.
Yep, and moralistically claims it was answered. I don't think
Here's the
anyone
answer.
here
I
got
could
an
do it.
answer.
I could do it. He said you would see 20,000 miles
That's not
or
falsifiable.
kilometers. He said you
That
could see
doesn't
it.
fall within realistic or reasonable falsification. Falsification needs to be real. I've posted this like 5 times, but just saying you could do it like this, that's like saying I could verify that Buzz Aldrin is my father if I could just get a couple locks of his hair. Do you guys know where I could find Buzz Aldrin so I could verify that? Right? Like this isn't within realisticness or reason. This is not reasonable.
I would agree that is wildly unreasonable, but I mean, come on, there's ways to falsify the globe, right?
Not by his
20,000
metric.
miles above the earth.
That's
Well,
what
that's a
I'm trying to
terrible
figure
method,
out.
but that's a terrible method.
No.
But I mean, you could falsify it if level's not curving. That'd be a
easy to
falsification of the
falsify
globe, right?
if you take account
Not to
from
his
only one
metric.
factor and so on, but when you combine all the data together, that's when the globe becomes harder to falsify. So on one experiment, on one factor alone, which exceptions can rise, well, it's easy to find something that could, let's say, oh my god, it debunks the globe. But when all factors are combined together, it doesn't. That's the issue that most flat earthers and globe earthers are into.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
just to
why
the
a lot
point
of problems
earlier.
are semantical rather than empirical.
Well,
All right, but
let's
Okay,
just to the
something.
point
Okay, you're saying it's
earlier.
a body of
Hold
evidence,
on.
but if
Just to
every
the
single
point.
card in this house of cards
Percent.
relies on a different card, go ahead.
hold on. You guys are talking all over Jeremy.
Just to the point earlier. I mean, that is an unreasonable way to falsify it. I feel like, but it could be falsified if you measured level not curving, for example, over a substantial distance. That would the globe would dictate it should be curving, and if you measure it not curving, that would falsify it. That's
Yeah, but then he
reasonable.
appeals to authority. He appeals to authority, and then he claims stacks. You can't
Yeah,
get
but
around that
is that
hurdle.
not a reasonable way to falsify it though?
Yeah.
Of course.
May I
Yeah.
interrupt?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it was also I know it's gonna be contradicting since I'm gonna talk with the debate, but basically, he mentioned the 300,000 meters thing, and people are saying, why appeal to authority? Since people went to the moon and stuff, and we believe them, right? Basically, if you want to prove something, you don't need to you yourself do it. You don't need to go to the moon yourself to see, to observe something, right? You don't need to. You can basically trust verifiable sources because if they're unverifiable, then sure you can try and verify them. But the fact that people went to the moon, which is more than 300,000 kilometers away, and they saw the Earth. And okay, sure, that's a whole different conversation if they went to the moon or not. I'm not going to get into that, but saying it's not, it's impossible to do, right? It's impossible to go up there, even though people have, at least in my personal opinion. It's just
But then you
contradict.
can't, if it's an opinion, you can't use that as a debate tactic or an answer. And you can't say, well, I don't want to go down that road, but then, okay, fine. But then you can't then use what they claim as proof.
What do you mean go down? Wait, what? I didn't understand what you said.
You said you don't want to debate whether or not they went to the moon or not. Okay, fine. But you can't use they went to the moon as proof the earth is round or a sphere.
Okay, I'm just saying that's a whole other conversation, but
No,
you're
that's
saying,
fine. Just don't bring up that topic. If you're going to use it as a proof for the globe, you can't.
I'm
If
just
you don't
using
want
it
to
as
talk
an
about it.
example. I'm just using it as an example, It's not like I'm not saying like definitively like people went to the moon and we're gonna debate this whole thing. I'm just using it for an example, because the whole argument, appealing to authority isn't valid. It's just, a very, how to say it, not a very correct thing to say because
It is.
Well,
It
yeah.
really
In
is, sir.
a debate structure, or if you're talking about logic, if you're going to, if all your proof is just to an appeal to an authority, that's not very good proof.
Fallacious. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like
can I
It's
just?
maybe
not
an
proof.
example, like all right, if I said I had a purple elephant in my garage, and 5 of my friends claim that they saw this purple elephant in my garage, they all claim they saw it, and now we got 6 of us, my 5 friends and me, we all say we saw the purple elephant, and then we're out there saying we saw the purple elephant, and then if there's some other group across town debating for it, and they're using the 6 of us who claims that the purple elephant is in there. That's not a very solid way to go. And if they were to say, "What? We've seen it. We've seen it." What do you mean we? You mean those 6 guys who claims that they saw the purple elephant? That would just be like they'd be appealing to the authority of the 6 of us who claim they saw the purple elephant. That's extremely fallacious.
I mean, if you want to use it, you can. You just have to understand that is fallacious reasoning. So, well, the best evidence I have is fallacious reasoning. Well, okay, cool. As long as you understand that it's fallacious, fine.
That's the globe.
Well,
But that's the globe. It's all fallacious. You said earlier that there was evidence for the globe. We're telling you all of your evidence is fallacious.
actually, I want to make a little difference about like this purple elephant analogy, which, by the way, it's not a bad analogy. Geo, respect to it.
We have the best analogies.
there's just a difference between how we determine, let's say, from the scientist or the astronauts or etc. The thing is, we don't have people specialized in studying for their whole lives and recurring history of purple elephants in like some sort of specific domain there. Whereas when it comes to these sciences, well, these are specialized in such a way and they have a history and so on. So it's not necessarily an authority, but it can be a reliable source, such as if I go to the hospital, I'm going to expect to be met with a doctor that has experience in his field rather
That's
than
not
letting a
science.
stranger operate on me. Like if I need surgery, is it an appeal to authority to actually trust a surgeon who studied surgery their whole life?
No, at
Or
that point,
am
it's
I
appeal to
trusting someone
credentials.
who might
You're
actually be a good
you're
surgeon?
now appealing to credentials. Now there's a
Yeah.
difference. But
You
the
need
thing
to
is, like, you
define
can't.
science.
Right. But you're also mixing up. This what you're defining as sciences most likely as pseudosciences that are
Can I
going
do
to,
something with
no
you,
It's
science.
Heartless?
correct.
Well, I
Real,
mean, what science do you use to prove a shape? What
real quick,
science?
Fuzzy. Real quick, I wanna ask, since Heartless, since you're being good faith and you're in the conversation, I want to ask you the same question I asked Rich, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Sure. I just expect good faith from everyone, please. For once, I mean.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good, bro. I just really want to answer to this question. So, if you have a belief that the globe, you know, we are living on a globe. We're living on a ball Earth, okay? How can I falsify that claim that we live on a globe? What would be a reasonable or realistic falsification method?
Well, I mean, I
Right.
would have to think about a clear response here because there are multiple things I would have to bring up that like would need to be assessed to like completely falsify the idea or the, let's say, body of facts around the belief. So, if you want me to like go into the depths of that, of course you're gonna need to give me some processing time to like pretty much pin out the best ones because I don't want to leave you on,
Well,
let's say, wrong
well,
track.
Well,
first of all,
I just gave you
is
the
he
hold
coming
on.
in
I
low
just
for
gave
anybody else?
no.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know.
It's
He's
coming a little
coming
Yeah,
in.
low.
it's low for me.
It's because like to choose one specific example it's like a needle in a haystack. So I'm actually thinking about maybe bringing up 3 or 4 examples instead of just one, but I do need to think about which ones would be most accurate and
I,
most understandable from your side.
I could give you the best one right now from my side. It's measuring level to be not curving. Right? If you measure level not curving over a substantial distance, that would falsify the globe.
I mean, I can even answer it for you when you say all the facts surrounding this. Well, that's the problem is that we've looked into a lot of those facts, and that's the problem is that they're not necessarily facts. That's the problem.
I mean,
It's not
in what
unfalsifiable.
way did
Like,
you
is that
look
what you're getting at, Beasticle?
exactly?
No, I just want to know from their point of view, is there a way to actually falsify the globe from their point of view, Jeremy? I know we have our own point of view. From their
Yeah,
point of view.
exactly. From our point of view, what would falsify it
Correct.
would be actual direct evidence, like that the sciences and our physics and
Right.
everything that we actually use is incorrect and wrong. Like even computers, you would have
It's
to debunk
crazy.
computers itself.
Come
Which is
on, bro. You
Yeah,
got to
how do
debunk
computers
computers?
prove the globe? Computers don't
Hold on.
prove the globe.
Come on, bro. You got to debunk.
Heartless. The doctor analogy is terrible too because the doctor's actually touching the person. No one's actually touching the moon independently. And
The moon
I
could
could
be made of
stand
spare ribs.
outside.
there's a
I
claim
could
that
stand
some
outside
people
and look at the moon and say, Heartless, the moon, you can see blue sky straight through the moon and you can see stars through the moon. So the moon's not physical and I'm more correct than you because everyone can observe the same thing. And not one of us has ever gone to the moon.
um I haven't seen anything about seeing through the moon exactly. And when you say no one has went to the moon, I understand that you believe that the moon landings are false. I understand why and etc. I get that that's your perspective, but from our perspective, we see the moon landings as not false. So we have
Yeah,
people
but
that
you just said you just said you don't want to go down that road. right? Didn't you say you didn't want to go down that road? You can't use then that as proof.
Forcing it by basically mentioning the moon landing and saying nobody went to the moon.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he did bring it up. You're right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Let's
But
go.
this is the
Hold on,
problem. Though.
motocross. Hold on, real quick, Fuzzy. I just really want to know what, like, okay. So what makes you justify your belief in the globe, right? And how can we test that justification? Essentially, is it something that we can do?
We're back. Probably my. I'm not like stalling for time. Just got a message that is okay. 20 minutes. Food's in 20 minutes. So still got 20 minutes. Back to your question. Sorry for that.
He already said it before. He said it before. The facts surrounding it all. He doesn't have an answer.
That's a vague.
If you want to push it, but that's he doesn't have an answer.
That's too vague.
What can I use as my personal reference for the globe, which can be that they can use? And there are a lot of things that are coming to mind. It's just that how to formulate it correctly.
Like what? Like what though?
Yeah,
we don't believe you have any facts. You have theories, you have beliefs, but no facts.
Hold on. And so on. So assuming that there is actual good faith, there is the double sunset experiment, which I myself did actually do. I did witness 2 sunsets from changing the elevation and altitude and so on. So the double sunset experiment actually works for me. There would be the Big Dipper thing, which is a 1-year experiment.
Wait! Just do one at a time. What was the double? So I missed that. You understand that if you rose up on a flat Earth, you'd still see further, right? I mean, you understand that.
Yeah,
correct.
You do realize that there's an alternate explanation for the same observation.
Except that,
as there is for every globe argument.
The double set experiment. Suppose that I'm laying flat on a beach and the sun sets, and then I stand up and see the sun set again. To be fair, that is not seeing further because I stood up. Sure, I'm going to see like 1 inch further maybe, but I'm not going to see an entire sunset again as a result of 1 inch further.
Yeah, but that's your claim.
That requires a different horizon. Something that isn't.
The higher up you go, the horizon changes.
Yeah, your horizon is pushed back the higher you go. So if you raise an elevation after the sun has gone beyond the visible horizon, when you raise your horizon and push it back, guess what could happen?
Correct.
The sun could come back up from the horizon and then set again.
Yes,
completely
but the perspective
consistent.
is not the same. In this case, the sun would also be smaller as well as further, which is not the case.
Not always. And sometimes it is, but not always.
Yeah. But again, it's the idea. That's the point. But the point is that another the same observation.
Well, one at a time, guys. One at a time.
Example.
Sorry if I'm stepping. It's really hard to hear. Heartless. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm being interrupted this time. Sorry, but.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. If you make a point, let us respond.
But also, Heartless, can you increase your mic input? You're coming in low. Even for me, I'm on a computer. I can.
I don't know if this should work.
Can Heartless answer the main question that's being asked in a simpler way?
Oh, go ahead. Try again.
I don't really have a solution for it.
Oh, there you go.
This close. It's just like but I'm basically almost sucking my mic right now.
This guy said you got to debunk. This guy said you got to debunk computers to falsify the globe.
That was an example. Okay, it was metaphoric, not in a literal sense.
That's a little retarded, though.
Right, but then when they repeated the question, you then said double the sunset. You can see 2 sunsets, but again, we're trying to tell you that the same observation we can explain it in a different way. So it's not necessarily proof of
exclusive.
Like I said, alone it doesn't stand. It's like it comes with bodies of facts, and I was just scratching a surface, setting a terrain here. I wasn't like using that as the empirical example that I need.
I see.
So
why wouldn't you just
use a lot of
things and reasonings and ways to observe things without having to appeal to an authority or things that a human being can do on their own, such as go to local observatories with something.
Why wouldn't you just? Sorry, why wouldn't you just use the thing I said where we measure if level's curving or not? That would debunk it easy. Everyone would agree with that. Like, why wouldn't
Yep.
you use that one?
Because about the level, first of all, on both sides, the arguments always are ambiguous, and it all comes down to not knowing how level works and is properly defined in these systems. So it's
Level
not
means
going to work.
curved, essentially. Is that what you're saying?
But we could measure it though. That's what I'm saying. You
You're
could
going to
figure it
use the
out by
level on
measuring it.
any
You
part
could
of a
figure it out by
sphere. It's
actually
going to be
measuring
the
it
same
over a
result as if
substantial
you were on
distance.
a
This
flat
guy can't hear me, I
surface.
guess.
So
You guys are talking
level
over
doesn't
each
work.
other.
I know I
Level is
heard
not
him,
working.
but
Heartless, in good faith, if Jeremy's saying there's several different methods that are repeatable to measure a flat surface over a long distance, and you can be shown that, could you admit that there is good reason to question the globe just based off the facts that there's several methods to measure flatness over long distance and it can be repeated? Would that make you question the globe? Simply that.
By ignoring certain informations and factors, yes, it would work. But instead of ignoring these factors and other things, instead of mocking, let's say, refraction and all the things that you think are just
Well,
excuses, you need to consider them. And when
that's why
all information is considered, then the position is more accurate or reasonable. Even if, whether it's false or true, it would be more reasonable if everything is considered.
But then,
what
nobody
if
said
Jeremy
refraction.
said,
I'm just talking about. Hold on, man. I'm just talking about tangibly measuring if level is curving or not over a long enough distance. Miles basically.
right, but he
You
just
can
told
you
you. He
can
just said,
measure you can measure if it's curving or not, right? Over that long of a distance, that would be definitive. It wouldn't be like, oh, I guess maybe it could be. It'd be like something definitive.
no, but Jeremy, you're not taking into consideration all the other globe concepts, is what he said.
You don't need to factor in globe concepts.
Yeah,
You
I
just
know, I know
He's
that, but
make a
that's what he
straight
exaggerating.
said.
line.
That's what
all
he
You
I'm
make
said.
a
That
straight
alone is
line.
not enough. You got to
that's
consider more things that the
yours
globe says.
as well as mine, not just mine. I don't dismiss these
heartless, what
considerations.
if the
Hold on, man. This is
Hold on,
like
guys.
kind of
One at a
messy.
time. Everyone's trying to get in. Heartless, go ahead and say your piece.
Well, I mean, that shifted the memory out. Sorry, man.
No,
Well,
you're
you're
Can
claiming
we
standard
can we
refraction.
make a straight line? Can we make a straight line? Yes or no? Do we have it in our capability to make a straight line?
Sure,
Like
I
a
guess
like a
I guess we can make a straight line. Yes.
yeah, but
Okay, so then knowing that we can make a straight line, we could do this for miles and we could put a level up against it. And if levels somebody's hot micing, and then if level is deviating from the straight line, it would be definitive and we'd know, oh,
You would
it's not
need
a globe. We just
a
falsified it.
level that is miles in size. Basically, it would be a building itself. It would be a mega structure. You can't do this just because that your
I
level that
have
you need to
one
use
for you.
would need to be the same size as what you're trying to measure.
We couldn't make a wall. We couldn't make a wall a mile, 2 miles, 3 mile long wall.
Think about this.
Could we make a three
You
mile
can't,
long wall?
you can't
Well, we
see
could get we
grass.
could get into that, but wasn't the point to ask people who believe in the globe how they have falsified it or could falsify it?
yes, that was the
All
point,
right, fine,
Well,
fine.
Right,
Jeremy.
and
here's
again,
an example
he lost.
for the perspective. You can't see grass grow because it grows really, 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 really slow. Like the amount of growth is so slow, so small that is imperceivable. You can only really, you can't really measure it also because it's that slow. You'd have to be spending all that time observing it at the microscopic level for
That's not
years
true,
to know it.
honestly.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I do time lapse all
it's
the
a
time,
little
and you
bit of
can.
exaggeration, sure. It's an analogy.
No,
Exaggerating.
you can literally put a ruler in the ground. What are you talking about?
Yes, you can put a ruler in the ground, but it's going
That's
to take
measurement.
time. It's going to
Yeah,
take time before the grass is, let's say, bigger than the other. But is that really growth? Did it just grow, or is it just suddenly
what does
bigger?
that have to do with trying
Yeah,
to falsify your
Okay.
belief?
The point I'm trying to make here is that to our eyes, grass growth is imperceivable. Okay.
Okay, I got that point. What does that have to do with my question
When
earlier?
we're taking some things that are of a very large size compared to us, well, there are things that will be imperceivable to us as well, such as a very slight curvature. If it's 1 millimeter of curvature per mile, you're not going to see that with your eyes.
It's not 1 millimeter.
It's
It's
more.
8 inch
Yeah,
per
it's
mile squared.
Example, okay? Don't take the words in the literal sense. Take the example.
Yeah, but you're exaggerating everything. You're exaggerating every single
Yes.
point you make. We know the size
Yeah,
of the
you're
ball.
you're using bad
Take an
faith.
example though.
Yeah,
So
but no, but you're exaggerating the size of the Earth. We know the size of the Earth. We know how much drop there should be on an 8 inch per mile squared ball. That means at 10 miles we've got 66 feet of drop. We've got literal observations of horizons beyond 10 miles with physical landmarks that you can check on Google and on maps, and we see the horizon well beyond these landmarks. So
now take 10
you
miles.
should expect 66 feet of drop over 10 miles.
Okay, take 10 miles. Okay, like visualize this yourself. Look at something that is 10 miles long and put something that is 66 feet right next to it. Tell me the difference.
The difference would be if you had a landmark,
You wouldn't
like
even
an oil
be
rig, for
seeing
example, at
66.
around 9 to 10 miles, then you would, and you had another oil rig in front of it, you would be able to determine that that oil rig should be blocked 66 feet.
Okay, and why are the oil
So wait,
rigs
Roots.
like wavy and distorted in some way?
Heartless.
You have
So
to
your
understand
point.
that light bends.
Yeah, but your point is basically you can't actually see the curvature or measure it. It's just there. You wouldn't even notice it. That's your point.
From the basic eye standpoint view, when you're on the surface, of course not.
So there's no way to actually substantiate that there is curvature in the first place.
Exactly.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect.
Okay, so how did you establish curvature in
Sonar.
the first place?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're asking you. We're asking you the thing that is correct.
Yeah, how did you substantiate Earth curvature if you just said that you can't notice it, it's negligible?
Basic observations, my friend. Just basic observations. And you're going to say
And you just said that it's not observable.
You just said it's not possible
How
with
can it
basic
be
observations.
You're
You just said
interrupting me,
that.
by the way. I'm not done speaking. You're interrupting. So just you're even probably going to say that stars have nothing to do with proving what the ground and etc. When the observations actually do show something that due to perspectives and how light and everything works, yes, there is motion from the ground due to that.
What does that have to do with curvature?
What are you talking about?
What is it? Seriously, what does that have to do with curvature? How do you
Again,
substantiate the Earth curve if
A
you
geometric horizon.
by
Sorry,
your
D.
standard, Heartless, you just said it's not possible to observe with basic observations.
Listen, you're saying that you know that it's a 3,959 mile radius and there's 66 feet drop after 10 miles.
That's
and
the
all that.
Globe claim.
Has to be.
So
That
you
is-
know the claims, and you're asking for the claim again.
I'm asking for the justification of the claim.
The justification in the claim is within it. Like if you would actually read the
That's
paper
fallacious.
and look at the data. No, it's not. You have not. You don't look at the data. If you look
Dude,
at
this
the
is
I have
pretty-
to leave,
dude,
but I
this-
have to say,
for example,
sonar doesn't refract.
just if you-
Sonar
just
doesn't
if you-
refract.
The Globe predicts that there's a 24-hour sun at a specific time of the year, and people go there and they see that sun 24 hours in a time, and they record it, which matches
irrelevant.
the Globe, and it doesn't match.
That's
its
non
matter.
sequitur. Go ahead, Gio.
This could be a different topic. Dude, I think this is a pretty basic exercise. If I were to summarize it in this way, if somebody says, hey man, I caught my girl cheating on me, and they say, how do you know that? And then you give the reason how you validated it, how you know that she cheated on you. You could say, well, I walked in with her and she was with another guy. And the guy would say, oh, okay, then that's why you believe that, or that's why you think that's the case. That's the justification. So I think this exercise is pretty straight. Hold on, bro. I'm not finished. It's pretty straightforward. For somebody who's asserting it's a globe or they believe it's a globe, we're just asking, how have you justified it? How have you falsified it? And if you haven't, and it's just a belief, you could say, hey, it's just a belief. I haven't falsified it. I haven't justified it fully. You could say that. But we're trying to get to what the truth is. And so folks are asserting it is a globe. We're trying to understand where you come from as to how you falsified it, or can you do so, or have you done it? Yeah, or justified it. And so far,
hold on.
we
We're
haven't really
talking,
gotten that yet.
but Gia, we're talking
Yes,
about the
I have to
geometric
walk
horizon
you
right
through
now, not
the
the
steps
globe.
to justify it. I
No,
have to
well,
walk you through to the steps, but you're not letting me do that. I have to explain these things, etc. Such as, yes, these fallacy things that we all know, these semantics, the oil rigs, and so on. I have to mention these because they're part of the explanation and justification, and they come with explanations that are required for the understanding of what you're asking me. So you're asking me some magical one sentence or 3 or 4 word answer to substantiate something that can only be
no, just a
substantiated
coherent
by
answer.
what would be 30 pages of data.
No, just a coherent answer and just a simple justification.
Well,
If it's not simple, just start with, okay, this is how I justify that the Earth is actually curving away from me. There's a drop over distance, and that this curvature exists. Other than just saying, well, it exists because it has to. What is your justification for
my
Earth
first
curvature?
justification for that, which you're probably going to dismiss, mock also, but it's a valid observation. By the way, if you look up that observation, it's valid.
What observation?
I've traveled the entirety of Canada in one go. Just saying, not by plane, by car. Okay, so I've had a very specific experience doing this, and I was 5 years old, right? So I did not yet learn anything about globe Earth and so on, or the moon landings. I was 5 years old. We were driving from British Columbia down to Quebec. That's the entirety of
Okay,
Canada.
how did you know the ground below you, driving in Canada, was curving away from you?
Why did you interrupt me? I'm trying to explain that. But
I didn't interrupt you. I just asked you at the end of your statement.
yes, you asked me that before I started explaining everything, and all those details matter, because if I just say, oh, well, I saw this and that and concluded, you're not going to understand anything.
Well, no. Sorry, I think he's going there because there's. You think that you proved or showed that there is Earth curvature when you were 8 years old from the ground? You think that you did that from the ground?
I didn't prove
it's
anything.
a simple
I
question.
made my own.
Well, but that's what we're asking for. That's why. Why are you bringing it up if you're not going to do? That's why we're asking. We're asking you, what did you do to prove the globe or justify it or validate it? That's what we're asking you. So if it doesn't have to do with that, why are you bringing it up?
We can go back. We can rewind. Again, you brought up the Canadian example when you were 8 years old and that you drove all across Canada. You're saying that's your justification for Earth curvature. My next question is, how do you know by driving along the ground all across Canada at 8 years old, how did you know that the ground was curving away from you? I'm just following your logic.
He's lining up, but he's not speaking. I
So
don't
what
know
do we
what's going
have
on.
so far? Going to the moon and driving across Canada?
Yep.
That's what we got so far. All right.
Yeah, going up in a
Also,
high
this-
building.
And basic
Yeah, the two
observations
suns.
that you can't make. I don't know.
Right, but yeah, and you're just not taking enough globe claims into your.
Yeah, this is why the initial claim was that it's a religion. It's like, oh no. Oh, you poor soul. You need to go back to globe school. You need to get your indoctrination. You clearly don't understand that if you go up 300,000 kilometers, it's completely reasonable to say that we know that it's a globe because you could go up 300,000 kilometers and find out yourself. 24 people out of 8.1 billion people have been up that high. And if that's your claim, you think that's realistic? You think that's a realistic falsifiability? It's 0.00000000296% of the population can verify that claim.
That's good enough.
So there's that.
Well, I should ask ChatGPT this actually, but the maths nerds over on 24/7 back in the day. This is a long time ago now. In fact, it was AI Ardent that told me you'd have to be mathematically 1,000 to 1,200 miles away from the Earth to see that great big arc that they see essentially, like they see, like you sort of shown from the ISS. But even the Globe people, if they were being honest, they say that that's just a distortion. It doesn't look like that. It wouldn't look like that, right? So, yeah, you'd have to be at least 1,000 miles away.
You're only seeing 2 or 3% of the Earth's surface from the ISS, apparently.
You know what's hella frustrating? I mean, just like going back 8 years when I was first getting into this topic, what frustrated me is that the Globe was turned out not to be as much of a slam dunk as I thought it was, and that's where I would.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, it's just like because I thought that it was like when I first heard about Flat Earth in 2016, I was like, oh yeah, slam dunk, of course and then I started like pursuing it, and you literally get frustrated inside your heart, that cogdis that they talk about, because it's even if it is a globe, it's turning out that it's not as much of a slam dunk as you thought it was.
There's a lot
And
of assumptions.
yeah, and that I understand. I have sympathy, because I know that was very disappointing.
Yeah, it was like let me go prove the globe real quick and show these idiots what's what.
Real quick,
And
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
here we all are.
Yeah, and then 10 years later or whatever. But that's the thing. I mean, I like going back to the basics just because, it just reminds us, like, yeah, they don't have anything. They don't really have any justification for their belief. And I'm waiting to hear it. I'm trying to give the floor to Globers.
And I love the quote. I remember where I heard it first, but people like the quote is like the. Oh yeah, go for it. I have to go anyway. But you rarely question things you already believe to be true.
Right.
That's it.
Well, that's what this conversation is about suspending your beliefs and trying to acknowledge what evidence do you have to justify those beliefs before you go back into them. So Heartless, I don't know if you're still there. Are you still there? See you lighting up.
Or you got to falsify computers to falsify the globe.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a crazy claim. All right, so yeah, Gio, we got nothing so far.
But I mean, realistically, though, you could falsify it with the straight line.
Honestly, Jeremy, in their worldview, it's locally flat everywhere.
That's why you would make the straight line far enough.
What's far enough?
Far enough to where it'd be demonstrable. 3 miles, 4
3
miles, 5.
Yeah, 3 miles. I'd go with that.
3 miles is good. You go a mile and a half each way off level in the middle.
How about 24 miles?
24 miles would be dope, yeah. You'd have to do it with something where there would be no refraction. Like
Hang on, guys.
Nothing like optical.
Like Lake Pontchartrain Bridge, 24
How
miles.
about 400 meters? It should be measurable within 400 meters.
So how do you determine you've got a straight line, Jeremy?
That's the thing.
Right?
In their paradigm, they'll just keep shifting
They deny the straight line.
There's ways you could make sure you have a straight line.
Yeah,
or
but
at least straight enough to where it's not going to be an exponential kind of thing. You go both ways off level to make sure you're symmetrical on each side.
In reference to what, Jeremy?
Symmetrical to level.
Yeah, but what's level? If level's curved in their paradigm.
Yeah.
The levels, it's easy to make a level reference. So you make a level reference, whatever that may be, whatever it's doing, and then you make a straight line against it, and you see if it's deviating or not.
Yeah, but how do you make the straight line? Yeah, but see, like Daza, he would say, well, if you have straight line segments, right, and you put them all together, you wouldn't necessarily notice the curve because it'd be so minute between each of those straight line segments
If
until you
they
put them
can
all
build
together.
CERN,
Let me just answer Dazza real quick. There's multiple different
circle.
ways. All right. The way you'd make a there's multiple ways to make a straight line. We could go through each one individually, but multiple ways. Walls on hinges, neutrally buoyant lines in water, tons of stuff.
Yeah, but they're all subject to some uncertainty, right? So you'd have to be able to guarantee that whatever you did was truly straight, and that your buoyant line wasn't actually being slightly curved, or you've got this burden of demonstrating straightness. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I understand that, but you'd want to do multiple. All right, go ahead, Fuzzy.
No, I'm sorry.
Spit it out, sure.
If they can build CERN underground in.
Oh, you're breaking up.
You're breaking up, Fuzzy. The thing
Like
is,
miles and miles of tunnels in the curve, they can
you're going to want to do multiple lines,
do it in a
multiple
straight
different.
line, close enough to where.
Fuzzy, you're breaking.
It's really annoying when that happens. He's going to have to say all that again.
You'd see any kind of deviation. It'd be easy.
Fuzzy,
Yeah, Jeremy's right. There's been many
up.
easy ways to be able to find.
Fuzzy, you might
velocity, and you can work out how, like thunderclaps, right? You can see the lightning, and then you hear the thunderclap, and you can work out how far away the lightning was.
So what's making it lag?
What's making it what? Sorry.
What's making the lag? So if the satellites are directly
the lag, the fact that it's physically a distance away. Yeah. So it's physically a long distance away from you, right? So from the time it transmits its message to the time you receive it takes some time. That time is proportional to the distance.
Sounds a bit. You got to put a lot of faith into belief that.
Yeah, but that's the good thing, right? So GPS is completely open. You can actually build a receiver from scratch. You can capture the radio signals. You can process them into the data stream. You can do the calculation for the location, all completely in the open. There's no black boxes involved. But when it goes back to putting faith into it, that really surveyors put faith in it because they'll build billions of dollars worth of infrastructure against a measurement made from a GPS.
GPS is not or is using data in relationship to a reference ellipsoid.
So the raw GPS coordinate doesn't have anything to do with the ellipsoid. When you convert it to a ground position, it does use an ellipsoid.
Right. That's when it's most useful, correct, Dazza?
Oh,
you
yeah,
still have to reference an ellipsoid.
Ground, right?
Yeah, so it's not mutually exclusive proof of a globe using GPS data.
No,
you have the reference to an ellipsoid.
That's what I was kind of getting at.
So here's the process that you go through, right, to establish that ellipsoid. So you get your GPS coordinate, right, which is an XYZ coordinate in space relative to the positions of the satellites. And you can verify this by having some known positions. Like if you go 100 meters to the right, your GPS coordinate will shift by 100 meters. If you go 100 meters up, it'll shift by 100. So you can sort of verify the geometry of the satellites that way. But then you can measure the surface of the Earth in that coordinate system and align that with well-known features of the Earth, like the meridians. And so you can define the ellipsoid in terms of those coordinates, right? And then you can then position yourself on the surface.
Yeah, but when you say define ellipsoid, isn't that just a mathematical construct?
It's like any measurement you make.
No, but the ellipsoid, it's an idealized reference, right? Because because the Earth is Earth-shaped, right? There's humps, dips. It's topologically different all across. So you're basically just reifying the globe with the ellipsoid model. Yeah, you're saying because you have to reference an ellipsoid, that makes the Earth the ellipsoid.
No, so you can establish the properties of the ellipsoid from the direct measurements of the surface. So GPS gives you all these.
The direct measurements of the surface, what do you mean by that?
So the GPS coordinate, right, that you get from your phone internally is not relative to the Earth. It's relative to the satellites. So you can go around, you can collect all of these surface points relative to the satellite constellations, and you can say, okay, I've got all these XYZ coordinates from all over the Earth. What's the mathematical best fit to all of those shapes? And it's a spheroid, right? And you can say, right, we'll make Greenwich. Yeah, we'll call that 0 latitude. We'll define a coordinate system for it, which is our lat long coordinate system. And we use the spheroid that we've measured independently of that
Okay,
our
you
reference.
said that the spheroid you measured independently of that. How did you measure the spheroid independently? What are you talking about?
Graticule. What's the graticule?
No. So the GPS coordinate is not dependent on the spheroid, right?
It doesn't need to be.
It is though. It is though, because you took all your data from all your ground positions and you had your shape of the Earth, the geodesic model before you ever inserted GPS.
So
before you even had GPS, you had
That doesn't
question.
matter. What happened historically doesn't matter, right? GPS physically exists, right? And we can verify what its properties are. Now, it's a new thing we can observe in the universe, right? And we can start from scratch. We can say, right, we've got these GPS satellites up there. What are they? Are they really where they say they are? How can we verify that they say where they are and that they're moving the way they claim they're moving? And you can do that from the Earth. You can set up a 100 meter by 100 meter grid with 100 GPS receivers all observing the sky and recording information. And you can say, yeah, for all of these measurements to be coherent, those satellites have got to be where they say they are. Then you can measure the surface of the Earth.
That's where you lose me, right there. In order for all these measurements to be accurate, the GPS has to be working. No, I'm saying it's just a database from actual things done on the Earth, right before GPS.
No, because
I
have a
took a
query.
database and inserted it into GPS.
The GPS receivers.
In terms of the map, you mean?
The GPS receivers use a reference ellipsoid like the WG S84 to calculate the horizontal and the vertical positions.
So WGS84 ellipsoid is used when you convert a GPS Cartesian coordinate to an Earth-centric coordinate. But the GPS positioning system does not rely on that spheroid for its actual position determination. It's only when you want to map it to our known understanding of coordinates on the Earth, right? So we all know about that.
But you're saying
The
claim is that the GPS receivers use a reference ellipsoid to accurately calculate horizontal and vertical positions, because that's the mathematical model that's provided.
Yeah, so kind of like what you're saying is the GPS established GPs on its own, right? And if that's the case, throw out the theodolites.
Well, that's what they're doing, right? So NOAA, is it NOAA?
No, they're not.
The guys in the US?
They most certainly are not throwing out theodolites, man. You see
they're not
surveys
throwing it out,
everywhere. Yeah, they would be walking around with like a little transmitter, right, or receiver, and then pinging the GPS to get the actual ground position if they didn't need theodolites, right?
I
But the data comes from the theodolite.
I just wanted to clear something up as well. Are you saying all our phones are connected to satellites?
Yeah, if you're using GPS for location on your phone, it will be receiving a signal from a satellite. Yes.
Yeah. So
okay. I was just going. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Chelsea. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just say, if your phone is using satellite capabilities, why would someone then pay for a satellite phone?
It's a completely different method of communication. So GPS receivers are receiving a very low-level signal one way. They're not transmitting anything to the satellite. They can only receive these low-level signals coming from the satellite.
So okay, let me ask you this. So Daza, if my GPS receiver says that I'm at an elevation of 1,600 meters, am I 1,600 meters above Earth or the reference ellipsoid that it's referencing?
So typically your GPS will have 2 points of reference there. You have the spheroid, the WGS84 spheroid, and you'll have a secondary, forget what it's called, elevation, the geoid, the definition of a geoid on top of that. And that gives you your local elevation. And that's one of the inherent problems with GPS historically, was having that local elevation reference, which is why they didn't use it for aircraft for a long time, because and you knowing exactly where the ground was underneath you was a problem, because they only had that approximate spheroid.
Well, they still only use a reference ellipsoid. So when you're 1,600 meters above the ground in elevation, you're basically above not the actual ground, but the reference ellipsoid.
Yeah, I think devices now have a better model on top. So you have the ellipsoid plus another
but it's a model.
elevation model on top.
Yeah, it's a model.
But it's based on measurement, right? It's based on measurement.
Okay. You keep saying based on measurement, and I keep asking you what measurement.
Yeah, so I know it sounds circular, but GPS can actually be used to define this measurement as well.
It's very circular. Yes.
But
why? Right away.
So if GPS can measure your position in space in 3 dimensions,
relative to
satellites,
relative to the reference ellipsoid that you're using.
No. It measures your position in space relative to the other satellites. That is the basic premise of GPS. Is that it works out where you are. So this is where the actual, the whole physical operation of GPS is based around working out where you are relative to the satellites. Then it works out where you are relative to the surface of the Earth. and you could use a purely GPS-derived model of the surface of the Earth by just wandering around the Earth, measuring all of these points, and declaring that as the surface of the Earth in GPS coordinates if you wanted to. And you could say, right, I know how far above the Earth I am from this GPS coordinate. But for historical reasons, we have lat long and elevation, and GPS is then mapped to our understanding of lat long and elevation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you're basically using a reference ellipsoid, right, as your point into where, okay, I'm at 1,600 meters. All right, the satellite says that I'm this high because of this timing, but in reality, it's still based off of the lat long system to actually pinpoint where you are in space, right? So you're basically using a model on top of a model to pinpoint your location on Earth.
Using
correct?
a celestial
GPS.
Using a celestial sphere that was transferred down to the ground and reifying the whole thing all over again. That's what we have going on right here in this conversation.
No, you're not reifying anything.
We do.
So let's say, for example, we'll try and build an analogy here, right? You've got a basketball, and you know how the basketballs have those markings on the surface, you know, that pattern of lines. But let's say you've got a basketball and you've stuck it on your desk, and on your desk you've built you've got a ruler vertically and a couple horizontally. You formed an axis, right? And you've measured the surface of the basketball within that axis from the outside, right? You've determined the shape of the basketball. Now you know historically the shape of those lines. So what you've gone and done is mapped your measurement in that three-dimensional axis of all of those lines. You've basically mapped those lines into that axis and defined them in terms of your new axis that you've set up. And that's what you can do with GPS, that you can measure all of the points on the surface of the Earth that have known named locations in terms of that long, but you've measured their coordinates in 3D space independent of that. So you can then define a spheroid based on those 3D coordinates, not the old lat long, and but then in turn map those known positions to those GPS coordinates. That's not circular.
I don't even know what you just said.
He's talking about the Latin.
Yeah, it was a bit confusing, wasn't it? I'm not thinking of it straight.
A little long-winded and sidetracked, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if we have
GPS,
we want to measure with GPS, what do we do, right? We just take a receiver with us, right? Because GPS can't receive or whatever the fuck it is, right? And then we'll just have this little box of information. We'll put it on the ground and be like, okay, ping me GPS. Boom, establish that. That's how we'd have to do it with GPS if we're actually going to do GPs and ground measurements, right? But that's just not how GPS was established measurements. What it actually did was took all theodolite GPs and everything established from tools on the ground and then put it into a database that GPS references.
Yes, so all of the raw GPS three-dimensional coordinates all map onto positions we know on the Earth, right? And NOAA's going through the process at the minute, right? So do you know about the NAVD leveling network? So there's in the continental United States, there's a great big leveling network that surveyors use called NAVD 88, and it's been established through traditional methods, geodetic surveying, right? Geodetic leveling, where the level's been transferred across the country and elevation.
Sea level?
Sea level and all of the
points?
local references, all the local data points you have. So if you go out as a surveyor and you want to...
You're just talking about data.
Yeah, the datum. Yeah, the NAVD 88 datum, right? Yeah.
So I posted that in the chat for you. These are the geoid and receiver measurements. This is what happens when you put it all together. Is this what you were referencing? The geoid height, the orthometric height, which is global mean sea level, and the ellipsoid height. And it says to get it all, you basically have to take your topographic height, right, which is equal to ellipsoidal height minus geoid height.
Did he cut out? He should know this. This is common knowledge.
Giving him some time to look at it, I guess.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so that's basically my understanding of it as well. So you get...
Giving him some time to look at it, I guess.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so that's basically my understanding of it.
Giving him some time to look at it, I guess.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so that's basically my understanding of it as well. So you get... The GPS will determine your point in space. It knows what the geoid height is below you and the ellipsoid height, and it's able to work out your elevation.
So the geoid is an idealized representation of sea level extended under the continents.
Yep.
The ellipsoid is another mathematical model of the Earth's shape.
Yep.
Okay. So how does this help me establish what Earth is actually? How is this mutually exclusive proof that the Earth is a ball?
Well, so
if we're just using mathematical models and whatnot.
So anytime you want to define the shape of something, you're developing a mathematical model, right? So the flat Earth is a mathematical model. And
what shape
whether
is
you
flat?
like it or not.
Is flat the shape?
So when we're saying, so if we're talking about flat Earth, right, you're basically trying to say that the Earth, mean sea level is a plane, okay? So rather than having an ellipsoid, you have a plane. And this is where it's mutually exclusive because you can measure that ellipsoid directly with GPS.
I'm failing to see how this is not circular reasoning.
So yeah, hang on 1 second, please. So mean sea level is measured on a vertical datum. So I don't know.
I looked at that paper. Right? It says geopotential. I've never heard of that. Geopotential number. I've literally never heard of that before.
Yeah, the numerical difference between two different equipotential surfaces. W being potential along a level surface, and CP being a geopotential number at a point. So in that diagram, let me show you guys.
Yeah, it's like WO is geopotential, gravitational potential.
Yeah. Potential along the level surface, geopotential number at a point. What's the zero? W0 is the geoid. Yeah. So it's the difference between the geopotential and the geoid. And that's how you get your geopotential number. Again, these are all mathematical concepts, though. These are all just interpretations, and basically they're using the geoid, the ellipsoid, and the orthometric height to basically reference whatever datum you're using. Correct? Whatever datum it is, you need to know what datum you're using in order to see the differences between those three. And then getting the differences between those three, depending on what datum you're using, is how you get your accurate position above the surface.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to say, so again, I don't understand how it's proving the Earth's shape.
Okay.
So I still don't understand that.
So let's start with the spheroid, right? So the geoid, the difference between the geoid and the spheroid is small compared to the overall dimensions of the thing, right? So you don't have to concern yourself with the geoid initially. We can just stick to the spheroid, which is much simpler. And you can measure the dimensions of the spheroid in the GPS coordinate space independently of knowing what the spheroid looks like. And that allows you to then use that. It's like if you've got a bit of graph paper and you draw a circle and you want to measure the radius of the circle by calculating the positions of all of the points on a circle and using the mathematical equation of a circle to determine the radius, and also to determine whether those points actually are a circle. So you can draw what you think is a circle in the middle of your graph paper, and then go and draw off, measure off all of the whole bunch of coordinates on the graph paper that are on the circle, and see if those points mathematically fit a circle, and if they do, what the radius is. Now, if you didn't know what the circle, if you hadn't drawn the circle but just had all the points, so you'd wandered around and you collected all these points, but for whatever reason happened to form a sphere or a circle, you could first of all determine that yes, those points that I've just collected actually are a circle, and this is what the radius will be. And that's what you do with GPS, right? So you get all these coordinates, X, Y, Z, that aren't referenced to the ground at all, and you can take all of those points and say, what shape do these form? And you can say mathematically these things fit a sphere, and they actually fit a spheroid, which has these particular properties very well. So, and that's
you keep saying that, right? But and I asked you like, where's the like you said Noah's doing it, but I asked you like, hey, where can I read about this, right? Where are they using this independent information that's completely away from GPS, right? Current like
I posted
GPS.
it there for you, Pure Rigor, if you want to see. It even says right here, a datum is built on top of the selected spheroid and can incorporate local variations in elevation It says, with the spheroid, the rotation of the ellipse creates a totally smooth surface across the world. Because this doesn't reflect reality very well, a local datum can incorporate local variations in elevation.
Yep. So the underlying driving shape is the spheroid. Then on top, you have a fraction of percent local variation, right?
So
So
what are
the
you
shape of the
taking
Earth is the
averages?
underlying.
Yeah.
You're just ignoring ground positions, taking averages, and then like making a claim to the shape of the Earth.
So
yes,
when we talk about ignoring the average or using averages, we're talking about a shape that is measured to 1 part in a million or better, right? Using the spheroid.
Yeah, you're taking averages. You're ignoring the actual GP, taking averages of between. All right, so if I took like a dot, right, put it on a paper, and took another dot, put it on the paper, you could connect those dots. But if I put 20 dots in a row, right, you could choose to either connect all dots like one dot to another in order, or you could just draw a line through the middle of them. Right? So essentially what it seems like they're doing is just drawing a line through the middle of them and ignoring the actual GPs. Is that accurate?
What do you mean by GP here?
Ground position. Like the point on Earth where the receiver would be.
Earth.
That very point where you're standing.
Okay, yeah. So I'm trying to think of a way to describe this for you so that it makes sense.
I think I just described it. Like, do you disagree with that, or you agree?
Yes. So they're measuring all of these ground points, right? Not in a ground-based coordinate system, but in a satellite relative coordinate system. You go around, you measure all the points on the ground, and then you look at all of those points as a surface, right? And see what kind of surface that is.
Right. And this paper is saying, what's this study saying then? What do they do? They're taking actual GPs, or they're not taking actual GPs, and like connecting the dots each and every one to get an actual shape of the Earth, or are they guesstimating, like averaging?
It's different spheroids. Different spheroids for different spots on Earth. This is what it says right here.
Yes.
The Earth has been surveyed many times.
Different geoids.
No, there's different spheroids. Different spheroids.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can define it in different terms, depending on what you use as your baseline, right?
It says the surveys have resulted in many spheroids that represent the Earth. Generally, a spheroid is chosen to fit one country or a particular area. A spheroid that best fits one region is not necessarily the same one that fits another region.
That's so inaccurate, it's useless. Like, that's so inaccurate. You're not drawing a global picture at that point.
No, you are. The difference between these spheroids is very small, right?
If you cannot use your measurement for North America and transfer that into Europe, then you have no consistency. You lost.
You're missing the point.
No,
all of these spheroids.
I'm addressing the consequence.
All of these spheroids have almost identical properties, right? They're all large spheres of about 6,300 kilometers radius.
So why do they use different ones if they are almost exactly, right? The terminology you're using is they're so close, it's like any difference is irrelevant, right? That's what I would gather.
The Earth is
so now I'm going to ask you, well, why do they have different shapes for different
Because
regions?
the Earth is not a perfect sphere, right?
It doesn't address what I asked you.
Well, that means that is
the Earth is not a perfect sphere, so you have to have local adjustment, right?
Right.
The overall overarching shape of all of these models is an identically dimensioned sphere of about 6,300 kilometers radius.
Yeah, but isn't that based off of the Creticular network, which is the Latin long system?
No. The Lat long system can be used there, right? But
how do you get coordinates without Latin long, bro?
In the case of GPS, right, the coordinate is not Lat long based. The three-dimensional coordinate of GPS, which can be used to measure these surfaces either globally or locally, is then translated into known Lat long, right?
You're gonna have to show me that, because I mean, I've never heard of having a lat long system not be associated with the graticule. Like you're gonna have to show me that.
You hang out with Shane too much. So the lat long system, right, is historical, right? It's how we know and understand dimension or positions on the Earth in terms of lat long. And Shane will tell you this: you can put any coordinate system over that lat long, but they all have a geometric interpretation, right? Physical geometry. So with GPS, you start out with a physical geometry, all of these points, and all of these points all around the Earth form a sphere. Now, depending on where you've measured your points, the actual spheroid that fits best might vary slightly. So if you've got a whole bunch of points in the continental United States, or a whole bunch of points that are mostly equatorial, you'll get a slightly different picture of the spheroid than if you had a big uniform distribution over the entire Earth. But they all will demonstrate a spheroid. And then you can say, right, we have this spheroid. We know that in our GPS coordinate system, Greenwich is coordinates X 6000, Y 4000, Z 2000. That's where we anchor the GPS, and then we map all of the GPS coordinates to our known lat longs.
Okay, so I'm gonna share this with everybody. Here's all the different and supported geographic and vertical coordinate systems. It's about 76 pages of different coordinate systems.
Yep.
All used for all different purposes, all across the Earth, different locations, different countries. So the idea that it's, it's not substantiating the point that, oh, this must mean Earth is a ball, especially when you have all of these other coordinate systems that are used and have to be used because of the differences in different locations.
Because everyone's done their own local surveying. Right? That's one of the problems they've had with GPS, right? The GPS defines lat long elevation independent of the local survey, because so what they did is they take the idealized spheroid that you can measure with GPS, and then slice it up into lat long coordinates, but very mathematically precise lat long coordinates based on the GPS measurement. That then will conflict in some cases with local lat long. I think because the first GPS ground station was obviously in the United States, they anchored GPS there, which meant that Greenwich is actually zero degrees longitude. That Greenwich is actually off by a significant amount if you take a GPS receiver there. But it doesn't alter the shape, the underlying shape, right? All of these things agree that
the underlying shape is the
sphere.
assumption. No. The underlying shape is the assumption. You're just using an ellipsoidal model because it's convenient.
No, because the ellipsoidal model is the only model that fits the data points.
That's not true.
It is. If you take all of these GPS data points from all over the Earth, the only model that will fit it is an ellipsoidal model. If I gave you 50,000 GPS locations from all over Earth, XYZ GPS locations, the only shape that would fit that is a spheroid.
Yeah, it's because of the southern hemisphere, right?
Heartless, you're hot micing again. Okay.
Yeah, I would say there's some truth to that for the southern hemisphere. I mean, since it was mapped off of a sphere, I don't know how you get around that.
Well, I mean, it shows that there's differences in spheroids. It says, for example, 1 degree of longitude at the equator on the Clark 1866 spheroid is 111 kilometers, while at 60 latitude it is only 55 kilometers. It says because degrees of latitude and longitude don't have a standard length, you can't measure distances or areas accurately or display the data easily on a flat map or computer screen.
Yeah, so that's the standard projection problem, right?
Exactly. It all depends on what you want to project. Like, what are you projecting the lat long onto?
What matters is the geometry. Right? You measure geometry. You define a coordinate system. You measure the geometry physically inside that coordinate system. Then you project those coordinates onto a plane. So the physical geometry of the coordinates on the surface of the Earth in the GPS coordinate system can only fit a spheroid. They cannot fit any other shape.
They can only fit a spheroid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying the southern hemisphere. He's saying the southern hemisphere can only work on a ball.
No, over the entire Earth.
No.
Imagine
the northern
this, right?
hemisphere is fine, dude. Northern hemisphere is fine. It's the southern
hemisphere. Not fine. It's not fine.
Okay.
What's the distance from the North Pole to the equator?
It's based on the GP we're talking about, right?
So what's the distance on the surface from the North Pole to the equator, right? It doesn't match what you get from the circumference of the equator. So there's a whole bunch of problems. It doesn't work. The flat Earth doesn't even work on the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, but some of these spheroids that I'm looking at here are completely different, dude.
In what do you mean by completely different?
Each region. He's already said
each region is completely different. Like
by
here, I'm looking.
Can you quantify that? What is
look,
so each? So
I'm going to post
spheroids
this.
have two key elements, right? A minimum and minor axis, or major and minor axis.
Yes.
What is the difference in those axes between all of these spheroids?
Okay, so if you go to page 42 of that PDF I just posted, and you look at all the different spheroid names, and you look at all the differences between the semi-major axis and semi-minor axis between each of those spheroids, they're literally all different. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to have a different spheroid name to it.
So are they all spheroids still? Are they all still spheroids of approximately 6,300 kilometers radius?
No.
You're looking at, are any of them approximately flat?
It's one that's 5,000 by 5,000. But no.
5,000 what?
I'm just looking at the semi-major axis and the semi-minor axis. It just says 5,000, 5,000. But I'm just saying, this is how many different spheroids there are in order to correspond with whatever region you're using. So
they're all essentially identical, right? They vary by less than 1%. So those 5,000 numbers, I've got no idea what that is.
No, they don't look identical to me. These numbers are fucking hugely different.
They're all different. There's so many different spheroids, though.
I would say 6 million is a lot different than 9,000. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but what are the units in each of these? They're just numbers, right? We need to know what they mean.
It says meters.
It just seems like there's so many different sized balls to comport with the data that they're getting. So they just made a bunch of
so
different
quantify the difference in
balls
sizes, right? So I'm just looking at that one where it's called Epimethus 2000. So it's at the top of page 43, which has got 59,500 semi-major and 59,500 semi-minor. That's a perfect sphere, that one. There's no flattening. I'm just trying to find out what it actually is.
You're saying it's kind of like all right, so what's the overall shape then? You're saying it's kind of like a squash ball, like a ball that's like pushed down on the north and south. It's like squeezed into the middle, bulging in the center.
Yeah,